that they are not to see you, and if they do that, they will not be reimbursed.
Yes,
All right. Well, we need some evidence on
I
that
have an
because I have
evidence
not
on that.
seen anything on the documents.
I'm definitely going to send it.
Carry on.
Thank you very much. That was my presentation. I'm gonna hand it over to my co-presenters.
Thank you. You know, let's do the following. Who else is still going to speak? All right, I think let's just take a joint oath, if you don't mind. Just after me saying aye, mention your names.
I,
Your names?
Ponki Ramusolo,
Yes. Swear that the evidence I shall give
swear that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth.
the whole truth.
Raise your right hand and say, so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. All right, so you can decide the order that you will be following.
Excuse me, they just briefly want to give their experience, three of the doctors.
Okay, after you've spoken.
They will slot within my presentation. Or they can speak before.
Before, all right. All right. Are you going to do that now? Do you think they should come before you? After, okay, that's fine. We will manage that. Sorry, just I forgot your name again, Doctor at the corner there.
Bokosi Calvin Chabalala.
Chabalala,
Yes, with a C, ne?
Or C-H.
CHA,
Okay.
yes, with a C. That is the Chabala with a C.
All right. Okay, Dr. Chabalala, the floor is yours.
Sorry, would you mind if we can allow her? She's on treatment. She has to leave.
She can,
cannot stay
yeah, she
long.
can start.
Can she just-
Yeah, 2 minutes and then I can go. Yeah.
Do I also need
What do you want to do?
No, I need to leave. I'm not feeling that well, but I just want to know that do I need to give the oath as well?
Yes, are you going to speak or give testimony or
It's
give?
testimony.
All right. Is the point that you have to leave, so you want to do that now?
She's not okay. Yeah, I can try and wait a little bit, but I'm not sure how long.
All right, fine.
She's not fine. She's sick.
Are you okay? I understand that you are not well. All right. Can you stay or do you want to leave now?
If it's possible for me to give the testimony now, I can do that and answer some of the things I had, and then I go.
Okay. Well, yeah, you should take the oath because we
That's
need to take
perfectly
all
fine
of this
for me.
evidence.
Okay.
Okay, say I, your name,
I, Ngcukaitobi,
swear that the evidence
swear that the evidence
that I shall give
that I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth.
and then raise your right hand and say, so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. So my understanding then is that she will talk first and then all of you will follow after her.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
thanks.
All right. I was also one of the people that were audited by Discovery, and in my presentation, it will be just a little bit of confirmation of some of the things that Effie said, but also some of the things that you raised, and I'm just going to answer with some of the questions that were raised by the panel. Thanks for the time. So
Just a moment
stop.
before you go. Is it Dr. Zwane?
No, you
Or
can
Ms.
just call me Klingiwe.
Uh,
Klingiwe Zwane. Clinical psychologist. Sorry,
Clinical
I forgot to say
psychologist.
that.
Is in the file, in the submission that's made by Solutionist Thinkers,
Yes.
is there any correspondence
Yes.
that's directly related to your case?
Yes,
There
yes.
is.
Or you recalling something? Okay, great. All right. So the impact for me has been more on the patient than anything else. Yes, even on myself. But I just want to first start by answering some of the things that you were asking. You asked about what the medical aid could do then if we are saying that the clinical notes must be submitted. So part of the things that was a bit of a conflict for me, even calling the Council of Medical Scheme and HPCSA, was the conflict between the section 59 in terms of what the medical scheme raised, as well as the booklet 14 from the HPCSA, which is talking about giving of patients from information to the third party. And when I consulted the two parties, it was a bit of a conflict because this one side says that they are allowed as a scheme to request information from our side, and on the other side, because of being under HPCSA, we are not allowed to disclose confidential information without the consent of the patient. But if the patient consents, then that's fine. I want to say that I did contact most of the patients, and they said no. And I think part of it, because of the type of people that I tend to work with, they felt that they don't even like that, they wouldn't want anyone else in the media to know that they are in therapy or their children are in therapy, because some of the people I see are high profile people, so they were a little bit uncomfortable with that, because for them, they felt like, who is it going to? So when I called back the medical scheme, they say that unfortunately it's my business. They don't care. And I did feel bullied in that moment. I actually used the word that I feel bullied now, because for me, I have no problem with releasing the files. They are here. But if the consent is received, I am okay with you taking the files. But now, if this information is suddenly on the news and I'm the only one who knows what happened to whoever's child, now we are more than 3 people in the space who knows. If, for example, it's a child, it's me and the mom and the dad and the child. But now we have other people who I don't know might receive this information. So then for me, it was a bit of a difficulty. I think in that moment, answering that question, if the consent is given, for some of us, we could be okay with just releasing when it's a written consent based on HPCSA. However, if it's not, then our hands are tied. So what then they did is they closed immediately all my files in terms of paying. Answering the second questions, my patients started to struggle. I got a lot of calls from suicidal patients' parents. And it became difficult for me that I actually saw some patients for free, a lot of them for free, because for me, I still have the interest of the patient first, because that's the person that I decided to join this field for. So you end up having to see a lot of patients. If you want evidence, I'm okay. And some of my patients are okay with saying that I have seen for free, because I continue to see them for free, because I needed them to be stable before I can refer to government. Having worked in a government space, it is also a bit of a problem, because in government space, we have a long waiting list. Then we throw them and they fall between the cracks. These are the high suicides that we then hear. So for me, it started to cause a bit of stress as well, in that it's overwhelming to be seeing people for free and yet you're not getting paid. Your good heart and the work kind of conflict. One of the person that called me, I don't know if there's records from medical scheme, if there is in terms of recording, said to me, it's none of my business that I choose to see people for free, he doesn't care. And I said, you know what? In most cases, answering one of the questions regarding the time frames, in most cases, these people run out of funds way early in the year, and they have serious illnesses and they're suicidal. So it becomes very difficult for us if you want to treat somebody who is actually calling and say, the mom is saying, my child is like this. You can't say, bye-bye, I don't care. So when somebody says to you, it's your own discretion, why did you decide to see them for free? It became a bit of a hurting spot, even for me personally. So I think I was answering those 2 questions, but also incorporating some of my own experiences as well. So I think when I say that people's medical aid ends quickly, there are a lot of people that I've continued to see, and I'm okay with providing evidence, that have run out of funds from April. Discovery for one runs out of funds. Germs, when you have admitted patients in the hospital, by the 2nd week, they don't have funds. For myself and the psychiatrists I work with, we always, almost all the time, know that by the last week we don't get paid. The hospital gets paid, but we don't. And when I said this to the guy, he says, who told you to go see people for free? Why didn't you release them? How do I release somebody who's going to be waiting for a bed in a public hospital and currently they are suicidal, that I know that I may be sued if ever they get home and they kill themselves? Obviously, because the funds are being paid for the hospital, we will just bend down and tell them. So, and continue to see them. So for me, it has been a difficulty. I have recently had 2 major surgeries, and I think in that challenge that I've had, I may have had some operations, but I think the high stress level that I've been going through has also impacted on my health as well, significantly so. So it is not to say I'm blaming medical schemes. I'm saying, can we not work together? If there's a fraudulent, maybe, what do you call the the submission. Call me, I'm okay with submitting, and I'm sure most of us here are okay with wanting to keep the ethics in hand. But if you call me 3 years later and you want to ask me about a patient that I need to track down and I don't know where their phone number is, I can say to you as the medical scheme, call your client and ask them to send a consent. Then I am okay with releasing the files. To be honest, as I've said under oath, I'm okay with releasing files as long as the consent is submitted. So I think those are the challenges that I've had, and I think if we think about the time frame as well, we don't use the same interventions. There are intensive interventions that sometimes take even way more time than what we give patients. And when they say to us that they need the notes, my notes may be 2 or 3 lines, but the work I did with that patient who was crying the whole session, I can't write. He was crying at 5 to 10. He was crying at 5 past 10. I can't do that. But that's containing a patient, which is the therapeutic approach you will use based on your training. That can take you long. And sometimes with the families, you engage with the family and they go on and they talk. And sometimes the patient walk out. Do I need to write that they walked out and they spent 30 minutes walking out and then they came back? Sometimes you spend like 2 hours on a patient because the family meeting just kept going and going, and you know that these people drove from far, so you will have to sit there and help them. So for me, I've been really stranded. The last part that I just want to cover is the patients leaving or going to other medical health practitioners. You do get those who leave, but you get those that stay. The reason they stay, for example, I see for my own health reasons, I don't see how I can change to go and see another gynae, for example, following all that I've gone through, because there's a personal relationship with that. That's just an example I'm giving. So the same thing with therapy. To change to her, it takes a lot of rapport building to actually get a patient to want to go somewhere else. So they opt to stay. Those that opt to stay, then they will get refunds from medical aid. I've received 2 letters from medical schemes and several calls from BankMed as well, saying that if I continue to see their patients, now they are going to hand me over because I'm seeing their patients and the patients are going to claim. I said to them, I have decided in my practice that I'm no longer going to see them, but they opt to come and pay cash. What they do with the invoice is none of my business. I've paid, we've exchanged, so now you go back to the person. So that's where the difficulty is now with some of the patients that have decided to stay.
Can you just tell me about the issue of consent?
All right.
My understanding is that the schemes rely on the so-called Section 10 declaration.
Mm-hmm.
So what's wrong with that?
So hence I'm saying that then they can go back to their own patient. I also have my concern that I have with HPCSA about doctor-patient confidentiality, because if now I have to release third party, it says in section, in booklet 14, the patient has to give consent. So that's where the conflict
the point they are
of the
making is
policies.
that the patient has already given consent.
No, to me. The patient gave consent to them. To me, they didn't. The only consent they gave to me is that you will keep your information confidential. That's all they said. And I mean, if you need evidence of their signed the consent is there. So we have different types of consent forms that are signed.
I see. So that Section 10 doesn't, you say it doesn't apply because it's a relationship between the member and the scheme?
Yes.
And not a relationship between the member, the
Yes.
scheme, and you?
Yes, because when they come, sometimes you find that they are on momentum or they were paying cash. Then in the middle, they decide to move to a medical scheme. They've already signed my relationship or treatment consent. When they go sign the other one, this is a different relationship. Hence, I'm saying they must get a consent from their own client as much as I'm getting mine from my own client.
Now, you said you were one of the medical practitioners that were. What happened with your relationship with Discovery?
Firstly, they wrote me a letter, and the letter came early this year, but they were already owing me money, so they didn't pay that money. And then after that, I relayed the information to the patients, and the patients said, unfortunately, some of them left. They went to other practitioners saying that they can't afford to pay cash. But my relationship with them is that now they send me a bill that stipulates a particular amount that says that I must pay that amount. I must give the patient's clinical notes, and I must give the diaries, and I must also show how I can prove the time that I say I spent. So the relationship has gotten to a sour point where now a lot of my patients decided to stay in, and now they're claiming from their side. So they have to pay the patient, but then that means that on their side they are now compromised because they can't reach me to stop me or cancel my connection. So even though they stipulate to patients that you must go to this listed practitioners, some of them actually still stay with us because of the relationship that was built, that took a while to build.
Yes, but I mean, you heard your colleague saying sometimes the problem is even where the scheme has essentially blocked you.
Yes.
You can't charge the patients directly and they claim back from the scheme because the scheme will write to them that this doctor is blocked and you may not use them. If you do, we're not going to honor the payments.
Okay, so for me, at the moment, I haven't had a patient that came back to me to say that they didn't pay them. I have received that last one that you said, because I was, like I'm saying, I've been very, very ill. While I was ill, that was the call I received, and to a point where they said to me, if you continue to see them, then we are no longer going to pay. Now it becomes a challenge because these people don't want to stop. So they still do pay, even after they've said that. So to me, it felt like a threat that I need to act. So I opted not to act because I thought I didn't ask John to walk into my practice. I have stipulated that I no longer take this so-and-so practice. John decided to give me cash as per our new agreement. What John does with the invoice, I don't know.
And do the patients get reimbursed by the schemes?
Previously
Afterwards.
they were, so I don't know now that they have sent a new letter saying that if I continue, they are no longer going to pay because they're saying I'm in arrears with them. So it's a bit of a conflict for me because I'm feeling like if you notice the problem that happened in 2016, why didn't you call me in 2016 and you come and call me in 2019? Because if you think there's a discrepancy somewhere, I don't have a problem with proving to you the therapeutic methods I used to use this code. Because for me, the other thing is if you place a code on your list of codes, you expect it to be used, right? So now, when I choose to use that particular code, it's based on my clinical discretion that I can stand in court and say that this is why I'm using this code. If a person is admitted, I use this code. If a person is discharged and outpatient, I use this code. And I can explain to you why therapeutically and how studies have shown that certain interventions are much more helpful for people that are continuously seen in one space while they're doing groups, and you integrate all of this. You minimize how they will be able to do more follow-ups as outpatients. But I can't decide if it's a personality disorder, for example, whether the personality disorder will be suicidal afterwards. I can't choose that. So it becomes a little bit difficult when you have to now later on navigate how to explain to somebody who's not qualified within your field why you use a particular approach and why that particular approach tends to take more time than somebody who uses a 30 minutes type of approach.
How did the complaint against you arise? Do you know how it arose? When the scheme wrote to you, was it as a result of it being brought to their attention by a member or by somebody else, or was it as a result of a general review process by the schemes that picked up information in relation to your practice?
To be honest,
and what specifically was the complaint by the scheme?
I'm not sure if it's a standard letter, but I've seen others with a similar letter like my own. So I was as shocked as anybody can be because I didn't expect it. I didn't know about it. I didn't hear anything from any patient. When it came through, they said that you are an outlier as compared to other practitioners. So my question was, which practitioners are you talking about? Are we talking about practitioners that are working in hospital? Are you talking about practitioners that are working outside as outpatients? Because if you see, even if there is different codes I'm using or procedure codes, I have the right to use them because you've placed them there. Otherwise, then give us one code and say use only 86205 only. Then I will understand that I walk in knowing. But if I spend 2 hours and you don't have a code for 2 hours, what do you want me to do? To split the 2 hours or to not? Because that's what I was saying to that guy, that sometimes I stay at the hospital till 11 at night because a person is uncontained and having a panic attack, but you should have been home at 7 with your own family members. So that code doesn't exist, but that is now when a person says you're using your own, why do you take time to see them? It's your own choice to do something like that.
And have you provided that explanation to the scheme?
I have. And I think that's the day I really, really felt so overwhelmed because the guy was literally just bullying me. He said to me, you know what, I don't care who decides to do it, who told you to go out there and do that and see people for free. And I think for me, one of the patients that actually has hurt me a lot is that on top of it, this patient is on a top cover, so the top level of their cover, and they generously are paying, but it's not a patient that we can refer to somebody else. I had to continually try and seeing that patient for free. I got calls from Cape Town saying that your patient is unraveling. What are you going to do? And I'm like, you know what? It's hands tied. I literally remember her calling me saying, you know what, let's agree, I will see you for free when I have time. So now it's outside of my working hours because I need to do it just out of the goodness of my heart. So I think those are the things that people struggle to understand, that when you go into the health field, you care for a person. It's not that you're working with machines, you're working with a day-to-day human being. Until it affects you directly within your family, it becomes difficult. It just sounds like just information and noise. And I think for some of the people that have come to me who happen, obviously because of confidentiality, I can't mention their names, because it affects them personally, that's when that they say that, you know what, we are happy to also come in and give a word, because they realize that in the middle of the month they don't have cash, because our fees are not necessarily cheap when it's cash.
So did you explain what you mean when you say you were bullied by the investigators?
It's the sentence that I just stated, and like I'm saying, I'm not even it's not like I'm uncomfortable to say it given the fact that it's recorded. If medical aid wants to check their records, is there. When I mentioned the fact that we actually even go out of our way and see your patients for free, this person said to me, who told you to do that? Because it's your own time, you decide to do something like that. And I literally said, you are harsh to say that. At least you should just say that, oh, wow, thank you for seeing our patients or our clients. We do understand that there's a problem. Unfortunately, policy says this. But to cut me off like that, it's like I'm just not, I don't count in going out of my way. So for me, that felt difficult, especially when I say to him, which is more of answering your question. If you contact your own client and ask for consent and they give you consent, then I will understand, because this clause, this booklet 14, makes it difficult without you contacting. Because on my side, they're saying, no, maybe on your side, they will agree. And the guy said, no, it's your thing. Go and contact them on your own. All I'm telling you is that it means that if you don't give us what we're looking for, we will stop paying you. And obviously, they stopped paying me.
Can I ask one further question, just going back to your experience with Discovery? You said you were flagged as an outlier, but there are a range of ways, as we understand it, that Discovery flags outlier. What were the specific allegations made?
So they mentioned the fact that I have a lot of clients. So for them, they were thinking that if I have so many patients, then it means, this is stuck on the phone when I was asking him exactly the same question. He was like, no, you see a lot of people. How do you see that? How do you manage to do that? And a lot of people, it's not like he's talking about like 30 people a day, or, I mean, I don't see that much people in a day. I don't even get to like 10 people or something like that. But I mentioned to him that you should also understand that when I see the patients, who told them to come to me matters. So I work at the hospital and at the practice. So yes, I may see more people than someone who's working 2 patients and is working in government. I'm in private. So I can see 7 people in a day. And that is within, because it's not ridiculous numbers. It's within my time. So I said to him, if you are thinking that I have too many patients, like why is my practice big? I'm like, if you are in media or in different platforms, your advertising method will be different. So you will get a chance to have many patients coming to you. But it's not that an outliner in a day I see 50 people. No, it's just that why is my practice growing? Because other people are not having grown numbers as much as you have. So that's the one. I mean, obviously we will have a locum, but to be honest, I have not seen like so many people in one day.
So just to be clear, so I'm understanding the evidence clearly. So was that the only allegation?
The other one was the time that they wanted me to prove that I do really see them by the diary. So I said, if you come to our work setup, we work at Akiso. So Akiso is a clinic where we have psychiatrists, psychologists, and social workers that work together. So we all allocated a particular time frame when we can see them. They first have to attend groups. I can give you a diary and say which period and when was I see them, but I can't tell you exactly at 4 or 5 pass, because sometimes you find that she's waiting for me, the psychiatrist call her, I had agreed this time from the patient, so I don't know where you're going to get the proof. So I don't know if there's a camera that's going to prove that I did see this person at that time, but the time have changed from the diary to the time that is on the book, so there could be a bit of a change there, because they wait outside for us. I don't know, other people might have different experiences. They wait outside, and then while you're waiting there, the psychiatrist has called the patient, or the social worker has called the patient. Now you have to wait a bit longer to see, to see your particular patient. So those are the things. The other one that was also raised was the code, the procedure codes. So the procedure codes, I explained to them that the time frame that I sometimes put there is not even a true reflection, because you don't have. I avoid to put the right one because you would complain. So I end up putting maybe 86206, yet I spent 2 hours with that person. So my other time is not calculated there. So they'll ask, why do you put 86205 and 86206 and 8207? I'm like, because sometimes they stand over time. Sometimes there's the approach you're using. There is some approach called intervention approach, where that intervention, intensive approach. It means that you first integrate some of the things that happened in the groups, and you integrate how the person is. Then you start with some of the class. Sometimes you have role plays. You sit across a chair and you engage with the patient. So it can be not as strict that all psychologists do 55 minutes, or they do 45 minutes, or they do 15 minutes. So just because she does 15 minutes doesn't mean that we are trained the same. If she's trained psychodynamically, she may stick to 50 minutes. If I'm not trained psychodynamically, I may not even like it. I may be open to, I need to focus on this because you're in hospital. So that's when the changes and the different codes that are to make them think maybe there's something different.
When they send you the letter, do they say that you're an outlier in relation to your peers?
Yeah.
And do you understand how they define peers? Do you understand what the definition is of peers in that context?
It's not written. So as I asked, I said to them, explain to me, what do you mean by that? And they said, I have too many patients. So having too many patients it's here and there. So for me, I wondered that, do you rather I have 1 patient per day, or would you rather that I have 4? Stipulate and let me sign something that says that when it comes to patients that are discovery-based, per day you can't see 3 more or more.
But you would have a diary or a schedule of the patients you've seen on a particular day, is that right?
I should, if it's at the practice. At the hospital, it's a bit of a difficulty. You can have the names, but to have a proper diary to say, at 9:10, I will see this one, it's slightly different. I mean, the people who work at Akiza will know what I mean. But in terms of the practice, I do have that. And I did say that, also bearing in mind that because we are talking about years back, I have notes. I am obligated to keep the notes for 5 years. But with a diary, if you're working with a practice where you are all joined in one reception, I have to depend on the fact that did they keep everything for 2016 somewhere filed? That would be a bit of a challenge for some of the diaries.
Do you have anything else to say?
No.
Thank you very much. You are,
Sorry, I'm tired.
Tired, Chair.
you are released.
Is that all?
It's Dr. So thank you. You are released. You may attend to your other
All right, thank you.
pressing matters.
Just a second before she leaves, we were requested by all the members to observe a moment of silence for our members who are depressed, who committed suicide, and some of us amongst us who have really gone through traumatic clinical situations, adversely affecting or seriously affecting their health. So we'll just 5 seconds.
All right, shall we do that 5 seconds then?
Before she leaves.
Thank you. Dr. Shabalala.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, we would like to extend our appreciation to the Council of Medical Scheme for the opportunity to which have been given to submit the information in writing relating to the conduct of the medical scheme and medical aid administrators and the designated service providers considered to be both unethical and unlawful. In essence, such conduct as we have presented or on the presentation involves the manipulation and extortion of healthcare practitioners, which fall within the terms of reference for the Section 59 panel as defined in the Circular 45 of the Council of Medical Schemes. The Solutionist Thinkers Group are here because they have wished to participate in this process and to make sure that the justice is served to all the healthcare professionals and the patients and the medical schemes themselves, to say they function within the confine of the law. I'm going to add on what the chairperson, Norma FS, have alluded, and I will start with the Declaration 10, basically, on what one of your colleagues have indicated, Marshal, on Regulation 15J, that the Regulation 15J doesn't only end where it says the medical aid have got a monopoly to request the file or the clinical notes, but it also goes further when you look into 15J2 to say, but a written consent of the patient is needed for that. So the contract, like the previous speaker who have said that on Section 10 declaration, that contract which has been entered by the member of the scheme and the scheme itself, it is between them. But when you want to involve us practitioners as third party, an express consent, when you read that section further, it says an express consent by the member is required. So the member needs to come and give consent to say, I'm asking you to release that information to the particular medical aid. So the medical aids can't just look into it blanket like that and then they put a full stop where a full stop is not needed. And maybe before I can go further, I would also like to highlight on what you did ask, Chair, like why is the scheme important for the survival of her practice? Why not charge the patient directly? One, we understand the demographics of black people or black patients, because once they rely on a medical aid, it is very difficult in these circumstances to can say they will go and get cash somewhere to come and pay you. That is the first thing. Second thing is, some of the patients which we have, we had this patient before they joined the medical aid. So when they decide to join the medical aid, they have seen that as a means to can look after their health, rather than to can say, I will go into my pocket and pay. That is the second thing. Thirdly, yes, the patient will move or change the practitioners if you go and tell them that you need to pay me, then I can pay you. Then your medical aid will refund you. It is very inconvenient to most patients to say, when I come, I need a treatment. I didn't have money. And even if I go and pay you and wait for the money, I'm not going to go to the scheme and they give me that money today. It is going to take a week or two, depending on the processes which the particular scheme follows. Some of the scheme needs an invoice to can say, to prove that you did pay. Whereas other schemes, basically when she was talking about indirect payment, when I submit my claim, without even issuing the invoice, they will pay directly to the member. In that regard, we can say that is where most of the fraud in nowadays it's happening, because now you are giving a patient more power to can decide whether he can just definitely bring that money for the service which have been rendered, or he can just use it for what he perceives it as important at that particular time. So we are saying such process, it is very wrong. And if you look into that, more especially as a point of departure, when we look into the very same section 59, that is paragraph 2, when it relates to the payment or reimbursement of the health practitioners by the medical aids, there has been a judgment. Basically, it's commonly known as Sichava judgment because it was by the Sichava, and it was handed down by the Appellate Division, which is the second highest court in the land, where, in summary, I'm not a legal person, but you will definitely help me. But if you look at it,
you've got 3 sitting here. So.
Yeah, yeah. In summary, what it says is the medical aids doesn't have a right to choose whom they pay once the service has been rendered. One, when the patient comes to me and I offer the service and I submit the claim to the medical aid, that person has given me the authority to can submit on his behalf, and so that the medical aid can reimburse me. So that's how I understood on the summary of that judgment. And then if you look into that again, also it was the judgment by Judge President Ngcukaitobi, I'm sure it was in 2016, where it has recommended to the Council of Medical Schemes to can say, it was against Parliament, the SAPS medical aid, to say, it is not their right, the medical aids, to decide who they want to pay. Once the service has been provided by the healthcare practitioner, such needs to be paid to the healthcare practitioner because he submitted an invoice on behalf of the patient. And my understanding is that the Council of Medical Scheme, as the regulator of the medical schemes, have just said on that report they do nothing in that regard to can force the medical aid to can follow in that, because we do see most of the medical schemes who refuse to pay practitioners. It might be based on the fact that they are saying the schemes, the practitioners are uncooperative when they claim that there is some perceived fraud or erroneous claims which have been paid. As I've alluded before, that most of the schemes, they will tell you that we pay in good faith, but we are saying, as practitioners, we also give the service in good faith, and we are hoping that such should be reciprocated by the medical aids. When we look, I'll just juggle on. If I remember the page, I'll tell you what I've done is because we have given us the portions which we need to submit. Mostly all of the things which I'm going to say, it's definitely here, but I just decided to take the portion which I was going to talk about and summarize it. Again, on the very same executive summary, as I'm still talking about, we do see the 3 role players when it comes to medical aid and health practitioners and the members. Then you have got the medical aid itself. You have got the medical aid as administrators who try to separate themselves from the medical aids. Yeah, there are those who are medical aid, but they do administration, but there are those who are administrators only, but they're not medical aid. And then on the other hand, you have got what it has come to us to be known as a network, or the designated service providers, which we can say they are also administrators. And some of the questions which we have with them is that some of them are not accredited to function, but the Council of Medical Schemes is not acting on them. The problem where if you have got someone who functions and is not accredited is that they are not accountable to anyone. So we are saying all the designated service products need to be accredited so that they can be held accountable by the very same CMS. Whether they have given them an exemption to function, they need also to hold them accountable to all what we feel is unlawful or unethical conduct by them. And the fact that maybe when you have a problem, you will complain to the scheme, which is contracted to the DSP. The scheme will tend to take you back to the designated to the network. In that case, we are saying the scheme is trying to run away from their abdication. They are abdicating their duty by trying to say, if you want something, go to the designated provider, because that's the person who is dealing with you. But we are saying our contract basically, even though some do sign with the networks, some refuse to sign, but our problem is that we are not servicing the members of the networks, but we are servicing the members of the medical aid. So when we have got a problem, when we encounter a problem with the network and we don't find justice, we need to go back to the medical aid itself.
I mean, if I look at a typical profile of a general practice, how much of the revenue is dependent on medical aid?
It depends on where your practice is located.
Yeah, but on average, in terms of your own members?
In my case, almost 98%, it comes from the medical aid scheme.
So I mean, any problem that you have with the medical scheme essentially means you must close down your practice.
Yes. And as the last speaker has just alluded one, or not the last speaker, but the chairperson has alluded one, we also feel when the medical aids write to the patient, you can say, you cannot go and see Chabalala. I think they are entering into a territory which doesn't need them. I think the best thing is to say they can't decide on my patients whether they have got the right to see me or not. They can't decide on that. That is our main problem. If a particular medical aid has got a problem, I think it is for them to deal with me, and then it should end up between me and the medical aid. But they cannot come and say, we have got a problem with the particular doctor, you cannot go and see that particular person. And I'll also put something on the racial profiling allegations, which we, at the moment, because we are still saying it's allegations, because we are saying we don't have a concrete evidence, and then we want you to help us in that. But we believe there is a serious case about that. Because as a group, we are always, when things like audits come, we are always contacted by our members to give them guidance on how they need to handle those audits. And in most cases, basically, the audits, when you go there, it is not a matter of it is an erroneous claim, like we would like to believe. Basically, one, it's perceived fraud, or they will tell you about incorrect billing. They will tell you about excessive pricing on your services, and once basically those are the three main problems which when you go there, they will tell you. If they're telling you on a fraud, they will tell you incorrect billing, you are charging for these codes where you're not doing. Other than that, they will tell you about excessive pricing. And in most cases, like when you sit with them and tell them that, if you look into, I'm sure the Competition Commission will follow us, is that they cannot come and tell me how much I need to pay based on the ruling by the Competition Commission. That is one thing. The second thing is, if they have got a tariff amount, even if I go and claim 6,000 on a particular procedure code, if they are saying their tariff is only 3,000 rand, then it is much easier we'll pay only 3,000 rand. The other one, it will serve as a co-payment. But some of the medical scheme don't do that. They are saying they are paying you 6,000 rand, and after they've paid you 6,000 rand, they said, hey, my brother, we have got a problem with you. You are overcharging our patients. But I have got a code, and then I can just put my tariff on that. I can just put my price on that. I can't be dictated by anyone based on the Competition Act. So if I were to charge private tariffs with the codes, it is up to the scheme to pay what they believe it is their code, but they can't come and tell me that that is excessive pricing. They have no right in telling me how much I need to charge, unless maybe I've entered into an agreement, maybe with the designated service provider, to say, I sign this way. When I see your patients, I'll charge that this much. But if I'm not part of the people who have signed that, they have got no right. You can say, after they have paid you and they call you to say, you have charged excessively on the patients. That we think it's very much unfair. And if you don't cooperate, then they will come in and basically come and reintroduce Section 59 and say, look, we're going to put you on indirect payment, or we are going to offset a certain amount which we think you have built, you have benefited incorrectly. You shouldn't have paid that. Then they can just send you to say, for the particular 4 years, you have claimed 4 million, and we think 1.2 million is definitely, you shouldn't have claimed that. And then we want it. If you agree, then you sign an acknowledgement of debt. Not to say you agree that you have done wrong. That is one thing which we need to clear here today. You sign an acknowledgement of debt because, one...
Dr. Chaudhary, sorry, I need to just interrupt, because I was waiting for you to pause, but you weren't pausing. So before you leave this topic, I just want to understand, I hear your submission about the unfairness when it comes to the tariffs and the claim of excessive pricing, where the scheme can just pay what they understand to be the tariff, and not the full amount, and the balance can be a co-payment or whatever. Why do you say that's racial profiling, though?
We're saying it's racial profiling because if you look into the more especially white practices, they do that. If you have gone into a white practice or other practices, you will see that they've written that we charge private rates, and then they charge whatever they want. And we don't see those people being called there.
Can I ask a slightly more pragmatic question just on that point? What do the schemes use as the let's say, baseline for determining what is or isn't excessive in those meetings?
I can't completely answer that one, but after the Competition Commission ruling, there has been something which they called NHRPL, which is National Health Reference Price List. So most of the medical aids normally used to use that as a guidelines.
Thanks, you can continue.
Thank you.
Just to make sure I get these numbers right, so you have the reference price list, right? That's published. Everybody knows it. That's the first number. And then you have the tariff of the scheme. That's another number. And then you have your actual cost to the patient. And that's a third number.
Yes.
Right. And so where does the issue then of excessive pricing come in there? Because presumably the scheme uses the reference pricing to decide its own tariff. And you charge within that tariff. If it is in excess of that tariff, it's regarded as co-payment. So where do you then become an outlier for charging more than you should be charging?
You don't become an outlier. What we are saying is, as that is a guideline, it's a guideline. It doesn't mean that I need to stick to that. I also need to see my worth. If the guideline says it's 800 Rand, my consultation, if I say my consultation is 10, it's 1,000 Rand. It means 2,000 Rand should be a co-payment. But when you see, in most cases, we have got what you can also call a split billing, where some medical aid will say, we don't want you to split bill. And what you do with that is, I have to submit the whole 1,000 Rand to the medical aid to say, I've rendered the service, my price was 1,000 Rand, but on my scheme, and if I don't split bill the invoice, it will come as medical aid portion 1,000 rand. So the medical aid portion, the medical aid has got the right to say, we are not going to pay you 1,000 rand, we can pay you 800 rand, and the 200 rand should go to the member. So when I get the remittance to say the medical aid have paid, I will phone my patient to say, your medical aid didn't pay the full amount. Obviously, they also sign on my invoice to say, if the medical aid doesn't pay full amount or doesn't pay, the member is liable. So there's no way in which a medical aid can come and tell me that this is an excessive billing. That's what I'm saying. The medical aid, they've got no right to tell me that it's excessive pricing on whatever I charge. That is my price, it's not excessive. And if they are saying it's excessive, it is, what is it based on? Is it based on the National Health Price List? No, I don't follow that. Is it based on their tariff code? No, I don't want to follow that.
I mean, there could be another model of excessive, in the sense that you've spent more time than you should have on a particular patient, but that's not the same thing as the actual amount that you've charged.
Yes, sometimes you spend a lot of time, and just because you have got a price which you normally charge, you are not going to say, normally I charge 300 rand on this, then because I've spent more time, I'll charge you 600 rand. You stick to that, to whatever you are doing. So in that case, the medical aid can say, now you are undercharging our patients because you see them a lot, you spend more time with them, but you charge a little. The only thing which is applicable to them is the other way around. So such things needs to be balanced, basically, to say the medical aids can't and should never be allowed to really determine what a particular practitioner needs to charge. They cannot take that right from me, because I'm the one who ran that practice, I'm the one who knows what I'm doing, and basically in most cases I've calculated what I charge based on the time which I spend with the patients.
Just to follow up on that, Dr. Shabalala, I presume, I'm really trying to understand this, also from what the medical aides might say, and of course they'll come here and say it for themselves, but just to give you a moment to expand upon your submission. So in your submission, you've given an example of how the medical aides send these standard letters, and one of the reasons that you are flagged as an outlier is this, and the wording is higher cost per claim when compared with your peers. Now, is it this flag that leads to the discussion around excessive pricing?
It is one of it, but sometimes not really. And let me further clarify you on the peer review, basically. The peer review is the mechanism which the medical aid may be used to see how you, not how you claim, basically, as they would want to put it. It is how your practice is performing compared to people close in the amenities next to you. But there are different ways in where one practice can always perform better than the others. One, they need to look into the practice and how you do your things. The same thing is, you might be having two ShopRite checkers. One is here and the other one is let's say, at Echo Park. People coming from that side might pass the ShopRite checkers in Echo Park and still come and shop here. So you are not going to say this practice because this ShopRite checkers, it's selling more compared to the other one, and said it means there is a problem with this one here. There is no problem. It's maybe it is the marketability, how these people are marketing. So if I'm in my private practice and then there are also 6 doctors around me, and I market my practice well and I do my job diligently, obviously my claiming pattern in all the medical aids will be high. And then in this regard, my claim pattern in a specific medical aid might go high, and that is common because, one, If you look into the private practices which have been set up, maybe let's say in the townships or somewhere where you find that there is a municipality office close to them, or it's a police station close to them. Those people, let's say it's a police station, it means they are in a closed medical aid, which means most of your patients will come from that particular medical aid. By nature of seeing a lot of those people who are close to me, my claiming pattern within that particular medical aid will definitely go high. If you are in a municipality, you'll find that there are a few medical aids. You have got LA Health, you have got HorseMed, you have got Discover. Those are the only medical aids which are contracted by the municipality. So, and we know our people. When they decide to say, let's go into HorseMed, I find joy in that. He's able to convince majority of the people within that particular area to can shift from one particular medical aid and then join that. So when January, February comes and you find that many people have changed to a particular medical aid, and if my claiming pattern, let's say it's HorseMed, it goes up, HorseMed will say, wow, we used to pay you so much, but your claiming pattern have just jumped. But what they don't realize that most of the patients whom I'm seeing, it's not new patients. They are my old patients, but they have changed the medical aid. What they need to look is that because the practice of this particular person is going high, can't we look into these people, why it's like this? Are the claims coming from the most of our old members, or is it new members? So in that case, it can also help them. And the fact that they don't even go and say, this particular practice was seeing so much, it has gone up, but now it has gone back down. The problem in that case, my claims at Discovery will always go up. When they move out from a Discovery administrative scheme, my claims at Discovery will go down. And then if they go into med scheme, which means my claiming pattern at med scheme will go up. But the medical aids, they're not interested in that. They're just interested in when they talk about peer reviews to say, you are seeing a lot of people compared to your peers. So it means there is something wrong which you are doing. And in essence, there's nothing wrong. And like we say, when you go into that and you reach a deadlock and you realize that my practice will just shut down, you have got no choice. You have to sign an acknowledgement of debt, then you start paying the medical aid, then your life continues. And what I'm saying is, by signing an acknowledgement of debt, are we saying the medical aids themselves are the ones who are promoting fraud? Because if they are saying that is fraud, but if you pay us so much, we can let you continue to practice, continue to work like that, you are paying us. What is that? I think it's one of the things which I can say. Even the medical aids themselves, they are promoting fraud in that, because they have got a duty to can report that.
I mean, so if you're saying we are not signing the AODs because we are acknowledging liability, why are you signing them?
If you don't sign the AOD and they say we're not going to pay you, that means you are closing down. You don't sign, you are taken out of the payment system. So they don't take you to SAPS to say, here's the person, this is the fraudulent claims which we see, which is basically the medical aid have got a duty if the fraudulent amount is over 100,000 to report you to the security cluster. You can say once the fraudulent amount is more than 100,000, it is their duty to can report that to the SAPS to do an investigation. You will see they will send you that you owe 700,000 rand. They don't report you. If you refuse to sign an AOD, that money, it will just continue a correspondence and no action, but you are taken out of the system of being paid. So in most cases, many people have find joy in that to say, I'm going to sign an AOD, I'll continue to work. But the moment you finish the first AOD, or before you could finish, another one will be coming, another love letter to can say, can you visit our office? There are some irregularities which we have picked up with your practice. And when you go, the very same procedure will be done. If you agree to sign, you continue to work. So we can say all these medical aids which are promoting the signing of acknowledgement of debts, they are the ones who are promoting fraud where it is not there. Because to me, that is fraud, or it's blackmailing. They are blackmailing me. You don't do this, we're putting you out of this system, and will also inform other medical aids of your conduct. So you have got no choice. And in most cases, you will see if one medical aid investigate you, immediately after signing, majority will tell you that a week or two after that, they will receive another love letter from another administrator talking about you visiting their office so that they can discuss your claiming pattern.
Sorry, Dr. Chabalala, I just want to confirm, is this your personal experience?
It is my personal experience and the experience of other practitioners.
And have you been reported to the HPCSA by the administrators?
Not at all. And I will come to that on my submission, that they've got the duty, if they feel there is an unprofessional conduct which you have done, to can report you to the Health Professional Council. And that is, if you look into our notes, it's where we wrote the legal status of payment arrangement between the healthcare practitioners and the medical schemes, where I've indicated that the payment arrangement between the practitioner and the medical schemes are legally binding if they are lawful. They can't be legally binding if they are not lawful, and if they are unlawful. They are only legal binding if they are lawful. An example is the unlawful agreement. We can put it as the one which is entered or is reached with a condition that a particular medical scheme or a particular medical aid administrator will not report you as a practitioner to any law enforcement agents or your regulatory body, if you agree to their terms and conditions. So that is unlawful, and that is what is happening time and again. Although the medical aids themselves may exercise their choice in terms of reporting unprofessional conduct to the Health Professional Council or any regulatory body. If it's a pharmacy, it's a pharmacy council. If it's nursing, it's nursing council. They have a duty in terms of common law and Section 66 of the Medical Schemes Act to report practitioners to their regulatory body if they feel they have done something wrong. So, but they are not doing that because their main aim to us is just to make sure that they extort as much money as possible from the practitioners.
Sorry, Dr. Chabalala, you said it was your personal experience. In relation to which scheme have you had this experience?
With me, it's only one scheme. I'm not sure if I can just make a submission in the correspondence if they haven't submitted, but I wouldn't like to mention the scheme here. But it was a particular scheme. May I continue?
Yes, you may.
Okay. And then the chairperson. The chairperson also, but no, I'm sure I've done this one. The access of clinical records, where I've said the express consent is needed from the members. The medical aid scheme, basically, when they do that section 10, I think they need to make sure that it's all covered. One, unless if there is a court order to can release the patient's records, you don't need anything. One, unless if the regulatory body, you have been reported to the regulatory body, so the regulatory body can request that because they will say somebody is claiming that you have done something, so we need to see that. So those are the only two conditions where you need to to submit the clinical record cards or the clinical notes. I think I've alluded that. And then I would like to conclude with the audits, basically, which we think the random audits, which are claimed to be it's random. We never believe that they are random. My take will be in the history of South Africa, basically the legacy of apartheid, we still have more white healthcare practitioners compared to blacks, even though we have more blacks than whites. And majority, what we have seen, majority of the audits are not done to white practitioners, even though they are in numbers. But the audits are only, it's in numbers. When you look into the ratio, it's more to blacks, Indians, let's say blacks, which covers both Indians and colors. Let's say just put blacks there rather than to say blacks and Indians.
Where would we find that ratio? Where would we find that ratio in your submissions?
I'll later email it to Grace, and then she can give it to you.
You've got it at page 18, paragraph 18. But the problem is that I don't know where it comes from.
I did search it, and that's what I'm saying. I will make sure that you get it, and I'll email to you that the majority of healthcare practitioners is still whites compared to blacks counterparts.
No, sorry, I think we're talking about different numbers. The number I'm interested in is that in page 18, paragraph 18 of your submission, you say the fact that more than 95% of those being audited are blacks speaks for itself. So where do you get the idea that 95% of audits are targeted at black practitioners?
To put that, we can't just really put that as 95%, but majority. Let's put it as majority of those who are audited are blacks, majority. And that number, it's not 95. We can't quantify it. It might be more than that, but it can't be less than 80.
But what do you base that on? You said that's the evidence you're still going to submit to us.
No. The evidence which I say I will still submit is that the majority of the healthcare practitioners are white compared to blacks. But the audits are, most audits are conducted to blacks, which in itself, it doesn't make sense. How I'm saying that is, if you have got, let's say, 10 green balls, and you put them, 8 green balls, you put them in a box, and then you've got 2 orange when you have got 10 balls, and they blindfold you and they say pick up 1 ball there. The chances are you'll pick up the green balls because they're in numbers. So what I'm saying is we have got more white healthcare practitioners compared to a black counterpart, but we also see most black practitioners who are being audited. And even though within that number of black practitioners, those of African descent are the worst.
And what do you base that on?
Personally, I can base on the fact that I have gone with most practitioners to the medical aids to go and represent them on when they were called by the medical aids. So I have seen that most of the people who I go with, it's mainly blacks. And I had only 2 Indians whom I've gone with, but almost everyone was black.
I mean, am I right that it's purely anecdotes?
Purely anecdotes. I agree with you.
A follow-up question on this paragraph 18 of your submission. So you've said that we challenge the medical schemes to show us the number of white practices being audited, but the issue of confidentiality comes to play. Does this mean you've actually written to the medical schemes and asked them to provide these numbers?
we told them when we go with other practitioners, and even when personally I went there myself, I told them, because I disagreed with almost everything from the procedure in which it's done. Then I told them to say, show me the wide practices which you are investigating. Then I can provide you with all the information which you need. Show me a letter which is written to a white practitioner, then I see how it looks like. Obviously, if you have written Mr. Feljun, I won't know where he is. But I need to see Mr. Feljun, the letter, and see if the content of the letter which I have received and that of Mr. Feljun is the same. But they have refused based on confidentiality, that whatever they do is between them and the practitioner. It can't go to the third party. That's why in most cases some of us have refused to cooperate in such things.
Your colleague, Ms. Kacheni, she told us that the information requested by schemes from white doctors and black doctors differs during the audit phase. Do you have any experience on that?
I don't have any experience because I haven't seen any white practitioners being called there, but I've seen, I was trying to check on my documents. I've seen one on social media where a white practitioner basically to say, she has seen people are being requested to submit diaries and clinical notes. She was never requested of such things. I was looking into that information, but it looks like I've deleted that. But it went into social media. It was 2 white practitioners, if I remember well. It was there. It was the white practitioner who said themselves that they are not requested to submit most of those things. If they just go there if they have been called, and then it's just a matter of to verification that you have seen such person. No clinical notes required, even though we know that the standard, the letter, it's standard. They only change the name of the recipient there, but everything is there. What do I say? If the white practitioner said, no, I was called, no clinical notes were required, even though my letter says that, it was just only a matter of validation of the claims, where only I was told to validate whether I've seen those people or not, and the process was done within in a matter of minutes.
Thank you. Do you still have more submissions?
No, in the interest of time, I would like, we still have 2 colleagues who can do that, and then we can collaborate in terms they are failing. But I think I'm done for now.
Thank you. All right. Look, we have a slight challenge. We had planned to finish your joint submissions by 12:30. The time now is 12:52. How many of you still have to speak? It's 3.
Yeah, but the others are just brief.
All right. Look, we can continue now until 1:30 and take everyone's submission, and then we'll take a break at 1:30. But I don't want to curtail you because, we shouldn't be driven by time. We should be driven by the importance of your submissions. So maybe I'm wrong in saying we should continue now. We should probably just take a break, even if it's for 15 minutes. And then we've been sitting through a rather tough session. So maybe let's take a break for 15 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll continue with you. We will have to make arrangements for the commission. So we are adjourned.
I have submitted to you the following. I am a general practitioner who have been in private practice for the past 24 years. So I was then confronted by a medical scheme.
Sorry, just remind me your surname.
Sieko,
yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. You're saying you are a general practitioner?
Yes. So I was approached by this. I received a letter from the scheme on the 26th of January 2015, whereby I was told that there was an irregular claiming pattern to my practice and that I should provide them with files. And in my submission, well, I've indicated they have given the reasons why they have withheld funds to my practice, and they told me that they will want...
Dr. Sieko, sorry to interrupt you. Are you talking about a submission that's attached to the main submission? And if you are, can you point us to the pages we should be looking at?
Well, yeah, I think the group will attach it because I had already submitted it to you, to the council before.
So it's a separate complaint?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So that's why I said that...
And not to worry, we have those. I'm just trying to know where to locate the documents.
Yes.
Thank you.
So then there were conditions that were put in line with their request that they will only pay me as soon as I have given them the files, and then that the files must be given to them before the end of that month. And then they wrote to me a clause that says, they say, please note that the application for membership include a clause that says the following. I agree the scheme is entitled to obtain a diagnosis of any condition for which the scheme is required to make payments in respect of services rendered to members or the beneficiaries registered by them as prerequisite for such payment. On the strength of this, I then submitted the claims. I submitted the documents to the medical aid scheme. And then it was followed by subsequent follow-ups to find out if did they receive the claims or not. Did they receive the documents or not. And the lady who was investigating me didn't come back to me. But then, I'll just be very brief. There was another lady that worked at the scheme that I requested to send the documents because this other lady who was investigating me did not come back to me. The emails are there. And the lady then who was responsible for investigating me then intercepted and said I shouldn't have given the claims to the lady that I have requested before. So she then wrote me another letter to say that, look, the condition still stands. We are going to withhold payment to your practice until such time we get the documents. Bearing in mind that I had already given her the documents. So after some time, I then went to see them because she kept on saying that she had not received the documents. I went to their head office somewhere in Roodepoort, and when I arrived there, she didn't want to see me, but fortunately, when I resisted to see her, she did come, and then she was with another colleague. They then said to me, look, this is what we want. They gave me the conditions of for me can be paid, but they said I must actually give them the files. And then I did give them the files. I did email the files, and then they, in my email, you'll see that they've acknowledged receipt of the files. And then they told me that the verification process was going to take place. So I then wait. They told me it will take about 10 days. After 10 days, there wasn't anything coming from them. I then decided that I should phone the lady. I think it was on a Wednesday, to find out about the outcome of the verification. When I phoned her, she said no, the files there was one file that was missing, but then I asked her, but you have written to me that you have acknowledged receipt of the files, but then why now, when I want the outcome of the verification, you're flip-flopping? Then she said, no, that's how it is. Then I said, okay, I will come. That was on a Wednesday. I will come on a Friday to come with the files so that you can then tell me which are the ones that you did not receive. Then on the Thursday, because it was February month, I had to pay SARS, I had to do all the arrangements to pay for the practice. So I was not in the practice the whole of the day. Then I had to come back late and then work very late. Then on Friday I went. I remember saying to her that, look, please be available on that particular day so that we can get the matter to closure. So on that Friday, when I arrived, she was not there. in summary, I then took the matter to Council for Medical Scheme. And Council for Medical Scheme came with a ruling whereby we were supposed to, to work together. It's in my submission. So they did not comply with the ruling. Instead, they actually, what did I say? They wavered from the ruling, and then they wanted to introduce a parallel process. And then when I went back to Council for Medical Scheme to say that, look, these people are not responding accordingly, Council gave them an extra 60 days. And then the Council advised me to meet with the CEO of the medical scheme together with the forensic investigators to sort out the mess. We met, but unfortunately, they did not want to comply with the ruling. They told me that they do not recognize the ruling, and that's how it is going to work. And then from there, I wrote to Council for Medical Scheme to explain to them that, look, they are holding your ruling in contempt. What then? Then Council was very mum. And then on the deadline of them to submit to Council, Council wrote me a letter to say that they've written a letter about the ruling. Then they misrepresented in the ruling to say that, everything we discussed was well, and they didn't. I have agreed to anything. And I didn't. And then from there, the Council wrote me that, sent me that communication, and then the communication, I wrote back to Council to say, no, that was not true. We never had that kind of a situation. Then later on, I was then fined 1 million rands, 1,037,840 rands and 18 cents. And the reason was that because I did not attend the meeting, and then they said they used section 59.3, and that was the reason. But yet, Council explained to them about section 59.3 that it was misplaced because they didn't find anything wrong. They failed to provide substantial evidence of my wrongdoing and all that. But then they went ahead with that. So after some time, I then approached Council again, to complain that this is not fair because the scheme now already is no longer paying me even for other medical aid schemes. And then Council then wrote, and then I'll say this in closure. They then wrote a letter, maybe I should read it to you. They say, we have received feedback from this medical scheme, and upon reviewing it, certain anomalies were identified in the claim quantification and the formula applied. We have raised our concern with the quantification formula. There were also information which was not adequately addressed, and we could not forward same to you without raising the issues with the medical scheme. Other issues relate to the quantity of sampling and the rationale behind their 61% aggregation. We will most definitely revert to you soon with comprehensive feedback, but it must be noted that the process is rather cumbersome as the medical aid has changed administration from MedScheme to Discovery administrators. The funds on hold have reportedly been transferred to the new administrator. However, MedScheme has to first clear the quantification discrepancies before we can engage a disciplinary hearing action. I trust this will suffice for now. So, from where this was written on that February 2017. Now, I had a problem as a practitioner because then I have a lot of patients that I had to be seeing. It was Polmed and Bonitas. And I raised this question to the scheme that, but why are you still prejudicing me of not paying me for work that has been done for other schemes where they, I have done nothing. And so there was no answer. I wrote to the CEO of the scheme, there was no answer. As I speak now, I'm still seeing the members because they are my members, and the monies that are supposed to be paid to me are still being withheld by the scheme. The members come, they show me that yes, the scheme is paid into your practice, but this, we don't understand what is happening. Some of my members have tried to, approach the scheme, but the scheme has not actually even been helpful to me. So like I say, I'm still seeing the members and I'm not being paid, and the amount is very huge. I think the amount raised comes to about 5 million now.
Just repeat that number.
5 plus 5 million. And this is about from 2014 up to now. I'm not being paid by the scheme.
Which scheme is this?
It's Med Scheme Holdings.
That's administrator, and which schemes?
The scheme was Glencoe Medical and Bonitas and Polmet. And this has really impacted on my, my family, because I'm caught between. I can't help. I can't fire the patient because the patients have been with me for many years. So for now, it's just this, the practice reserves that is keeping the practice going.
But how are you keeping the practice going?
Like I say, because I've been working for many years, so I had put some money in the reserves. So I, not anticipating that this could happen. So this is the money that has been, helping to make the practice work. Because otherwise, I was afraid to lose my patients that I've been with for all these years.
Sorry, just to make sure that I understand the essence of your submission. Are you saying that the CMS is failing to enforce its rulings against schemes?
It does. It has failed because I have on many occasions said to them that they have not really been fair. At some stage, I have asked them, why couldn't they call us together with the medical aid scheme so that they can hear the two versions, so that they can make an informed decision based on facts as being presented to them.
And schemes, you say, are contemptuous of the CMS?
Yes, the CEO did not even want to hear anything. Even the forensic guys didn't want to do it, to agree to the ruling.
And have you asked your patients to pay directly?
No, I've been using the reserves of the practice, so that's why I would be seeing the patient, give them medication, and with the scheme would withhold the funds. But then, all what was been happening was that we would use the reserves from the practice. The practice reserves was the one that was sustaining the practice, and is still sustaining the practice now.
But is it because your patients are not able to pay you directly? I'm trying to understand why are you using the practice reserves?
They can't, because when I tried to introduce that, then I realized that they will leave the practice, because they wouldn't actually afford to come to my practice if I would want cash from them. So in the light of that challenge, I then said, okay, let me just sacrifice, have them, look after them, whilst in the meantime pursuing this case.
Thank you, Dr. Siago. Are you finished with your...
I'm finished.
All right, welcome back. We are continuing to finalize the... Carry on.
I'll be the next speaker.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
The gentleman sitting there.
Okay, you go after me.
After you?
Yes.
All right, wonderful, thank you. So just remind us your surname again.
Ramosolo, Ponki. I prefer Ponki.
Ramosolo.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I saw your submission actually. It's attached to Solutions Thinkers. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, carry on. Because the investigator spelled your first name as Ponkey.
Yeah, that's my name.
But you spell it as...
Ponky.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, carry on, Ms. Ramosolo.
Okay, I'll just briefly talk about the process of the audits. I also draw from my personal experience and also talk about the effect of these audits on us as healthcare professionals. I'm a clinical psychologist by profession. What happens with this process is that
I'll go straight to the process. You get into the room. You are confined into this small room. It's 4 men, in my case, twice with discovery, 4 males. Very short lady like me confronted, you encountering those tall guys. It was very intimidating. They interrogate you. So with my initial allegation, I was found guilty for using the coding 207 instead of 206. And then the conclusion was that I owed them 96,000. Then when I asked to pay for them to take all of the money that they owed me, they said, no, we cannot. We have to take half of it. So they denied. So I paid that for a period of a year. While I was about to finish paying, I got another letter. And how that came about, if they audit you, if they debit your account and they don't find anything in your account, they block you. For the next run, let's say next week you are supposed to get paid, they won't pay you until you pay the amount that you acknowledge you'd pay monthly. So then when they debit, they didn't find anything, and they blocked me. Then when I sent, the guy is called Aerial Markers. I sent Aerial Markers a letter to say, I've paid cash, can you please unblock me? Then the next day, boom, he sends me a letter, an audit letter. Okay, fine. Then this time I went with my lawyer, and then they charged me again. So I'm just gonna continue paying them. They said my notes were too brief and scanty. So they said I owed them 100 and something. Then I said, okay, take all of it. They refused. They said, no, we'll take half of it. And so I'm paying every month 5,000. That's discovery. With Med Scheme, what happened with Med Scheme, they sent me a letter alleging that I was still working for government, and I resigned from government in 2013. So they alleged that I was still working for government. So I sent a letter and asked, why are you guys saying that? And they said, no, because you are still on GEMS medical aid. So I'm like, okay, am I not allowed to be a dependent if I'm no longer, if let's say I was working for a government, was I not allowed to be a dependent on that medical aid? Then I sent them a membership certificate of my ex-husband to show that I was a dependent. I was not the main member. And I even told them I had resigned a long time ago from government. And I wasn't even busy. At that time, I would see like 4 inpatients. Maybe my practice was not busy. So I just wondered how they picked me to be audited because my practice was not even that busy. So then later on, after that submission of the membership certificate, they sent an audit letter, the same letter that we get, they requesting files, which I denied. I refused. I said I quoted the acts and everything, the constitution and everything, and I said I won't be able to submit those. And I phoned HPCSA. HPCSA suggested I write a brief report for each patient and submit that. So I did submit that, those reports with the consents and affidavits from some patients who refused to sign the consent. And they put me on indirect payment. They said they wanted the clinical notes. And then with this indirect payment, sometimes they take about 4 months to pay those patients. because what's supposed to happen is the patients have to resubmit the banking details to them. I find it very ironic because they debit the membership money from the very same account of patients. Why not pay to that account that you debit from? So so every month it's a struggle that I go through. And sometimes I'm forced to say to a patient, okay, you can take 1,000 of the banking charges so they can pay me my money, which is not right, you understand? So it's in a way unethical. And when they demand the notes, I mean, files dated about three years back, some patients relocated, you've moved practices, you've lost diaries. How are you supposed to get that information? So that's my encounter with that. And the process, what it does to a person, once you get the letter, it feels like already you've done something wrong. It instills a lot of fear and anxiety in you. And I think that is the aim of the interrogation, actually, being placed in that small room. It does elicit a lot of anxiety. And we feel they are not fairly done. People who are interrogating you, they don't even have a background of what you're doing as a psychologist. They're not even qualified psychologists. And they determine how you should practice, the approaches that you should use, which is not right. And then it also affects your self-esteem as a professional. You start doubting yourself. Why am I implicated? Am I not good enough? And you also question your competence. And then it has a lot of socio-economic effects on us as healthcare professionals. This economic hardship and financial distress can have devastating effects on families. In tough economic times, like when your money is withheld, many families lose their homes, their cars, their retirement accounts, belongings, health insurance, and more. And families often struggle just to meet their basic needs. The shift from having something even moderate means to having nothing is devastating. When families are faced with the grief of losing everything and the fear of never being able to recover, these uncontrollable circumstances have a drastic impact on families as a whole, marriages, and on husbands and wives, as well as children. The common responses to such devastation include anxiety, depression with suicidal ideation or psychotic features, PTSD, alcohol abuse or drug abuse, nightmares, panic attacks, overwhelming levels of stress characterized by a loss of feelings of security and adequacy, confusion, feelings of detachment, inability to sleep, and other physical and mental symptoms of stress and depression. I've had a colleague, she was my office mate, she killed herself. It's very sad. I never suffered from hypertension, but after these things, I developed high blood pressure. Families may become torn apart or separated. Parents may interact with their children in tense or punitive ways with short temper. Children may respond with negative behaviors and emotions and may face problems in schools and get involved with negative peer groups and have low self-esteem and may be also delinquent. Lastly, the King 3 report on corporate governance require that every organization should demonstrate its commitment to organizational integrity. The principles of integrity is also important. The signs of integrity are reliability, openness, transparency, responsibility, consistency, and confidence. My question to Discovery and the rest of the medical aids, especially med scheme, is that do they think the manner in which their audits are carried out made the above mentioned?
Thank you. Now, I mean, my understanding about your particular concern is that your practice was identified as an outlier. And then you were told to submit certain information, which you said some of the files you didn't have them because of the passage of time.
No, I did have. I was just talking in general. I did have, but then with Discovery, I did submit the files, my clinical notes as requested. That's when they said my notes were too brief and scanty.
But I think there is a letter from MedScheme in 2017.
Yeah, MedScheme.
Where you said you didn't have the documents because of the. Where you said you've got 2 files because we lost the other one.
Yes, because the other one was lost. So we opened 2 files for the patient. We had opened 2 files for the patient.
I just wanted to understand that issue of how it comes about that, because I understand the rule is that you must keep the files for 5 years.
I moved offices I was on the 8th floor, then I moved to the 10th floor at that time, yeah.
But I mean, how do you think the scheme should deal with a situation where they say...
It's a common, anybody can make such a mistake. It can happen to anyone. And this is a patient who was admitted.
Yes.
The records are there that the patient was admitted. The hospital has proof that the patient was admitted.
Yeah. Because what they subsequently did is that they terminated the relationship and they told you that it would remain terminated until you can produce the evidence.
But it's not only on those, that patient, it's everyone.
Yeah.
I submitted, including that very same patient, a report on every patient.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I mean, so how would you suggest that one deals with where a scheme says, give us records of X, and you say, well, the records are not available?
I did have a file, but then I think it was a 20, I don't remember. I did have another file because they requested the information a year later after the patient was readmitted. So I did have another file, a duplicate file for the patient, with a sticker from the hospital with the records to say, yes, the patient was submitted. So I actually submitted 2 files. Yes, that other one, we found it, if I remember quite well. It was 2 files. What I was saying to them is, don't be surprised, it's 2 files. We had lost the file. We found it, I remember. Yes.
So in what respects are you saying the scheme was unfair?
It was unfair because they requested me to submit information that would help them in verification of the services rendered, which I did, which is the reports, the files, what more do they want? So they want details of the clinical notes.
Yes.
They want each and every detail that the patient was a rapist, the patient did 1, 2, 3. That is what they wanted. Because I wrote the diagnosis on the reports, the nature of the presenting problem, nature of intervention, the diagnosis, everything, which is what's important.
Ms. Ramasolo, you say that you were investigated and then you were found guilty and you were made to pay 96,000.
According to them, I was, instead of with Discovery, they said my notes were too brief and scanty. They said, okay, then you owe us this much. So I want to know how they came to that amount.
Sure. The 96,000?
Yes.
Did you sign an acknowledgement of debt?
I did, because I have to, my practice has to run.
And then was that debt discharged? Did you pay the 96,000?
When they realized I was about to finish paying them for the first audit, when I remember I said, they blocked me when they tried to debit and didn't find anything in my account. So then they block you if they can't debit. So then I sent, and then if you pay cash, you call them and say, no, I've paid, can you please unblock me so I can get paid in the next run? So I've sent the guy an email to say, hey, Ariel, I've paid, please unblock me. Then he sent me the audit letter.
And was that audit letter the one in November 2018?
Yes, that's the one.
And in that audit letter,
Same as
they
the
say
first
that you're an outlier profile,
It's the same as the first one.
and they list what those,
Yes. It's
what the outlier factors are. And they say one is high time codes when compared with your peers, 2, higher cost per claim when compared with your peers, and 3, outlier on risk exposure to in-house schemes. Now, can you explain for us, you refer to code 207 and 206, and that was what you understood to be why you were...
for the first audit.
For the first audit?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so what do you understand by that? What was the problem with the use of the code?
I think 207, it was, it's 1 hour, 10 minutes. 206, it's less than that. So they were saying, I was not specifically charging 207. I was alternating, I think. 207 appeared more than 206.
Okay.
So that's why they didn't.
So these are the time codes?
Yeah.
These are not ICD-10?
It's the time codes. It's the time.
It's a time
Yeah.
code, which is a separate code?
Yeah.
And the higher cost per claim, how did you understand that?
I didn't understand what they meant on that one.
Did they explain to you?
No, they did not.
So in November 2018, you say this was the second audit?
Yes.
And the second audit is based on the same reasons why you were flagged the first time?
Yes, and I submitted the clinical notes because, you get so intimidated, like you would just do anything just to get paid. So I submitted the notes and they said, no, your notes are not a true reflection of the time you've charged. So, you owe us this much.
And so, were you able to show why the time codes were appropriate?
I did, but they insisted that no, your notes are too brief for the time you've charged, for the 206 and 205 that you've charged.
And in both cases, it was discovery?
Discovery.
And where do you stand in relation to them now?
I'm still paying the OD, and they're paying
The second one?
The second one.
And what was the second one, what was the amount of the second one?
I was paying 3 point something per month, 3.2, now it's 5,000.
But the total amount that you...
For this second one, it was about, I think, 120. They took half and said, I will pay the other half.
120,000?
Yeah. And what surprised me was after the meeting, they told my lawyer to stay behind. So I could be wrong. So I got a sense that they collude with some lawyers.
So you were represented by a lawyer through
Yes.
this process?
Yes.
And the second audit, if that was the November 2018 one, the period of the audit, correct me if I'm wrong, seems to be 1st of August 2018 until 29 November 2018.
It carried on. I went to meet up with them this year, I think, beginning of the year. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Is that all?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next presenter.
My name is Dr. Papidi Alap. I practice in Rustenburg.
Is that your submission there? I think?
Dr. S.P. Diale,
Yes.
solutionist. I want to speak about my personal experience with Afrocentric, which was then representing Glencoe Medical Scheme, which was then under MedScheme Holdings and now under Discovery. In 2014, the scheme requested a list of 10 files through the email where they were saying that they've made a claim analysis and they've identified some irregularities. Therefore, they needed to verify the service provided to their members. Few months before then, they had then blocked the payments to my practice. While I then provided them with the records, I didn't have issues with providing the records because dental treatments are evidence-based. If you have cut a crown, the crown will be there on the patient. If you have done a restoration, the restoration remains evidence that the treatment was provided to the client. And then the scheme went quiet over a period of time. I then communicated with the lady who was representing Afrocentric at the time regarding the inquiry that they've made, that I needed to have the results of the inquiry in the interest of the patient, because I was seeing a fair number of their patients at the time. And when I made the inquiry, they subsequently released the payments after a week or so. And then in 2015 again, the payments were then blocked mid-May. And after a month, I then inquired with the scheme as to what was the reason they had blocked my payments. And then they then sent a list of another 10 files, and which I then provided to them. After providing to them, after some time, I then requested they provide me with the findings of their inquiry. It was the same emails which was requesting dental records, patients' files, and X-rays, which I then provided. After providing after making the inquiry again, and the payments were then released, the same pattern after a week. And then the scheme then sent a patient to our practice who we got to know that she was a private investigator through the police officer. We treated the patient on the 11th of August and on the 12th of August. And a few weeks later, the police officer came to our practice alleging that a case has been opened against me, that the patient alleges that she did not come for the 12th of August and an amount of 790 was claimed from her medical aid. I then provided the police officer with the records of the particular patient, which I still have in my possession, and that we treated the patient accordingly. Every service that we have provided was according to the treatment that we've provided, and the treatment that the patient disputes that she's not received, she has received, it was explained to her. And then the matter was sent to Rustenburg Magistrate Court. And the Rustenburg Magistrate Court could not prosecute the matter because they said the evidence that was provided by the scheme was insufficient to prosecute. Because I had provided the evidence that the particular patient was actually treated by us, we compared the signature on the affidavits that she had made on the police case and the ones that we are having, and the ID number. I said, no, this is a particular patient. I took pictures of pre and post operative, and then the matter was then not prosecuted. And then there was a representative from the scheme, Afrocentric, who queried the decision of the court. Then the police officer also came back to inform me that the scheme is querying the decision of the court. The matter was then resent to the court, and it was then eventually dismissed again. They said they could not prosecute because the scheme did not provide enough evidence to prosecute. And we then made a correspondence through the attorneys to the scheme regarding the charges which were dismissed and withholding of my payments at the time, which was around 400,000 at the time. And then the scheme respondent said that I'm owing them 2.4 million because I was treating the non-members in the submission. So we then said they should provide us with a list of non-members they allege we have treated. And then they could not provide the list of the non-members that we used the medical scheme to claim from the members. And then I lodged a complaint with the Council for Medical Schemes because the legal counsel advised us that we cannot take the matter to court because the process must go through CMS at the time. We then submitted our complaint to Council for Medical CMS, and then they made their submission. I made my submission denying the allegation that they made against my receptionist, who also denied the allegations which the scheme were making against us. And then, after then, the lawyer then, after the ruling, applied for summary judgment for payments of the withheld claims. Then the scheme in the submission, they provided wrong name, they twisted name.
Sorry, Doctor, what was the ruling of the CMS?
The CMS ruling was that the scheme, if can I just go through it? I'll just take the extract where we are directed to act on the ruling. If the scheme is disputing the legitimacy of the claims received from the complainant, particularly insofar as the validity of the claimant's membership, it is well within its right to institute and investigate. This investigation must be conducted legally, transparently, and outcome therefore must be communicated to the affected parties. Where there are variable findings of impropriety, the scheme must take such steps as provided for in law. The registrar cannot interfere in such a process. However, we equally cannot condone the behavior of using the Act to unlawfully withhold payment of valid claims for service rendered to legitimate members who are lawfully entitled to the benefits. In keeping with the provision of the Act, the scheme must, for every claim, verify the validity of such a claim and the membership to whom such benefit is payable and release payment to either member or the service provider, as the case may be, based on the validity of the payments of the availability of the benefits of such a member beneficiary. If it is indeed correct that if a medical scheme becomes aware of any payments made erroneous according to the Act, to which the member of supply or say was not entitled, it may recover such amount in terms of Section 59(3) of the Act. Section 59(3) stipulates that the amount may be deducted from the benefit payable to such a member or supplier of service. However, this provision does not grant unfettered powers to the scheme to arbitrarily withhold the payment without properly quantifying specific claims which were unduly paid and without providing the affected parties with proper record of claims which are deemed to have been improperly paid. Thus, the scheme cannot lay claim of a debt of 2.4 million without substantiated, nor it cannot hide behind alleged debt without good cause. If it is any intention of lying in Section 59(3), the scheme must be willing to provide the provider with specific evidence of all the claims make up to undisputed 2.4 million. This is part of the extract from the ruling. However, our argument was that in keeping with the law of common justice, the scheme was unfair in the withholding of my funds because they had received already the files which they requested from me. In all those 20 files, they could not open a case against me. Instead, they come with a false patient whom I injected, putting my profession at risk. The patient could have died from possibly adrenaline reaction from the xylotox which we injected on her. And the patient was falsified information to us because the address.
What do you mean by a false patient?
The investigator was sent to a practice, which they
undercover.
Undercover,
posing as a patient.
As a patient, and that undercover.
And you treated this person.
Yes, we treated this particular patient. We have records to verify that. We have the signature of the patient because it's the same signature that was on the records. And also,
sorry, just to interrupt there.
Yeah.
Sorry, what did the patient present with falsely, and then what did you administer to
the patient presented with a complaint of problem of teeth, dental caries, that you want to have its teeth cleaned. When you do when you treat dental caries, you must inject the patient with xylotox so that the patient does not feel pain. we anesthetize the particular area in which you are going to work on. And we treated
Sorry.
that particular patient, yes.
Yeah, so the patient presented with that, meaning the patient had dental caries,
There were dental caries, yes.
which you
Yes, which
proceeded
we treat,
to...
yeah, we proceeded to treat, yes.
I mean, your point about this was a false patient,
Yes.
you know, it's a false patient because you subsequently discovered that this was a plant, a spy by the scheme.
The only time I discovered is when the police officer came to investigate the matter.
And how, but you see, if I went there as a genuine patient,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And then you claim that it was the 11th and the 12th.
yeah.
And then I say, but I wasn't there on the 12th. That doesn't mean I'm a spy.
Okay.
How did you discover that this was a plant by the scheme?
We discovered when the police officer came to investigate that that patient was an undercover investigator. And we told the police officer that we treated that particular patient on those said days. And we have got a
Did they admit that they were an undercover investigator?
No. The only information that I submitted to the police officer was the records that to prove that a particular patient was attended at our practice and this particular treatment was issued and was given to the patient.
No, but I want to know what made you believe that this was an undercover investigator all along? What was said to you in that encounter?
Where the police officer made mention to me that there was an investigation which was conducted against me, and then the patient disputes the treatment that you offered. That's when I provided the proof that the treatment was offered to the patient.
Did the police officer say that that patient was part of an undercover investigation?
Yes, they did. They did.
Sorry, apologies for belaboring the point, but an undercover investigation by the police or by the scheme?
By the scheme. Yeah, by the scheme.
I mean, isn't that the point that my colleague has just raised?
Yeah.
See, there's a difference between an undercover by the police, because
Yes.
the police are entitled to entrap
Yes.
when they're investigating crime.
Yes.
But whether this was a trap set by the scheme is a different issue.
Yes.
And I was trying to understand, how did you find out that this was a trap set by the scheme?
During the investigation, that's when I got to know.
No, but what you got to know under the investigation, as I understand, is that this was a trap by the police.
No, it was not by the police, but it was the scheme.
It was the scheme itself.
Entrapment, that is why the lawyer argued that the entrapment, if it was supposed to be done properly, he's quoted, I don't know, section, I don't know the acts of Criminal Procedure Acts that they were supposed to apply to the court to get a warrant to execute entrapment. But then the scheme then did their own entrapment. And let alone in the allegation, they alleged that there was an exchange of money at my reception. And then I argued that if then they were investigators and they've noticed that there was an exchange of money, they could have done a civil arrest at a particular time. Why didn't they do civil arrest at a particular time when they noticed that there was a crime that was being committed?
Sorry, I don't want to make, I don't want to delay us unnecessarily,
Yes.
but I do want to understand what happened clearly. So the false patient,
Yes.
or let's call this person, let's say the trap.
Investigator.
But if the patient was a false patient, the patient came, presented with certain dental condition, you treated the patient
Yes.
for that very dental condition,
Yes, yes.
and the patient left.
Yes.
So what was the allegation that you never treated that patient?
They were arguing, the patient came on the 11th and the 12th. So they were disputing the treatment for the 12th, that the patient alleges she never came to our practice. Okay. That is why they then said, I treated the other patient and then claimed for the 12th, the date of the 12th, which was not so.
I understand.
Yes.
Yeah, carry on.
Yes, and then the summary judgment was applied for to the Rustenburg Magistrates Court, and then medical scheme then responded by an intention to defend the action. Then in their submission to the summary judgment, they then changed the names. The patient who came to our practice for entrapment was Maria Ntusang. And they then changed the name of the patient to Brenda Ntusang. And then they changed the name of the receptionist from Betty to Martha. And to me, that was lying under oath because obviously the medical aid should be familiar with the content of the case they've opened. Why do they now change the content of their submission? And we then wrote to Council for Medical Scheme, telling them that we still have issues with the medical scheme because they're not abiding by the ruling, which was very clear to them. And there were time frames also given on the ruling. And the medical aid only provided a quantification of their claim of 2.4 million 2 days after the time frame which was given by CMS. In it, they not even quantifying as to the reason why they believe we did not treat those patients. And I told them, call each one of those patients. If you can call 10 or 20 of them, bring them here, let's examine them. You will find the treatment that we have done to the treatment, to the patient corresponding with the claims that we have submitted. Up to date, they then withheld our payments, and then they then started paying me, I think in 2017, and somewhere last year, they then started paying me. So my argument, I spoke to my lawyer, these people now, they started paying, why are they paying me? And you know, you get a runaround with the lawyer. Sometimes they doesn't even answer your calls. And then I then instructed last month the lawyer to withdraw the action against the scheme because there was no progress with the action. And then the scheme then started paying the patients. So I then argued with myself that these people, they allege I'm owing them 2.4 million. One moment they're paying me, one moment they're not paying me, one moment they're paying the patients. So it's a confusion, and that's the state that I'm in at the moment. And had to close my practice because of financial constraints, you know, and get to be heavily indebted, have to sell your property at a loss because you're trying to make up to sustain your practice for false accusation, which I leveled against you. You know, I then requested someone to investigate the particular patients, whether if those credentials that she provided to us are hers. And then I was then told by the private investigator that her real name is Maria Molefe, not Maria Ntusang. So I found the scheme to have been very unfair to me.
Can you just remind us which scheme this is that used the...
It was Glencoe Medical Scheme. At that time, it was under administration. It was administrated by Med Scheme. Now it's under Discovery.
And why do you think that this is an example of racial profiling?
Because there was I will not mention name, but there was a white doctor across the street, which was about 150 meters away from my practice, whereby patients were complaining about this particular doctor. He will cut cavities, he will cut crowns. Patient will come with sensitivity. In my submission to Afrocentric audits, they've seen the records that those patients, when they came to our practice, they have got open cavities. That is why I had to close them. Some of them, they were claimed crowns which are not even in the patient's mouth. I had to then use the resources of my practice and got authorization from the scheme. The next thing they say, we do not treat those patients. Even in my submission to the scheme, I say, these are the records of the patients before treatment and after treatment. What is your argument? That is why you are even unable to open a criminal case against me with using those 20 files that you have requested from me. You rely on the investigator, which we have paid, who are working for Afrocentric, who are working for Med Scheme. Definitely, they will be biased to what you insinuate. Okay. No, that's all.
I would like some, I don't know if you did put the submission separate from your... Sorry, microphone. Did you put a submission separately from the solutionist thinkers?
We through solicitors.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Because I don't recall that one specifically.
Okay.
But anyway, if you could speak to the secretariat to make sure that we get records of what you were presenting.
Okay.
Thank you. Can we move on to the next presenter?
Put mine there. Thank you.
Yes.
I am Dr. Tsepo Stanley Prince Maiwana. I'll just try to summarize. Around about 2 years ago, I wanted to buy a surgery in Garankuwa. I paid the doctor a deposit, and then I was because I practice in Mpumalanga. I wanted to move to this side of town, but then there was this practice was working, and then they said no, there's a doctor that is doing locums there. Then I said no, he can hold for me before I can come. And I only to find that when I saw the doctor, I knew him because he was my senior at Medunsa. And then he started for me, and then I would just come by weekends. And then about 6 months thereafter, I was told that he was imprisoned, and I was also needed to come to the Tisharanko prison there, that is in the police. When I went there, I was also taken in, handcuffed, put into jail with some criminals in there. And then we went for the hearing. Thereafter, we were told that 500 rand fine while the case was being investigated. I asked who had put the case against us. They said it was med scheme and discovery, because I have hired a doctor that is a bogus doctor. And he said, okay, fine. Let them go to Medunsa where I studied so that they can find about this guy. And with me, after 6 months, having traveled in court, the case was thrown out, that there is no case against me. And then seemingly after some other 4 months, they proved that this guy was a doctor, and then they also threw it out. And when I tried to talk to Discovery and Med-Scheme to say, but you found no case against us, so why are you still holding my money? They said I was owing them something like 400 to 600,000. I said, where did it come from? Because I think there is a mistake here. If ever there is a case, let's talk about the surgery that is in Garankuwa, not the surgery that I was having. Let's talk about that. I don't think it had made so much money within so small piece of time. They said, no. Do I know that if ever they can report me to HPCSA, I will have a serious problem? I said, I don't mind. Let's take me there, because there I think I'll have a fair hearing. Because now I want to believe that a court of law has found me innocent. They didn't even see any case against me, but you are still continuing. Let's sit down, let's talk, then I'll show you where did you make also your mistakes. They never wanted to sit down with me. They said I must write letters. I wrote the letters. They never came back to me. I had a lawyer that had been working on my case when I was taken to prison. The lawyer continued now just to ignore my calls at some time, until I had to write a very serious letter to him to say, listen, please, are you going to help me? We won a case out of court together with you, where you told them, we were able to convince them that there was no case against me, but now this, why can't you solve this one now? He said they are not coming back to him and all that. I went to SASA. I presented the case about 9 months to a year ago. Up until today, nothing has happened. Summer. I went to Summer, yes. Up until today, nothing has happened. Hence, I've been frustrated about this situation. My family has been turned upside down. I got my 18-year-old that is told me that she's not going to go for her matric ball because I'm owing. And they said if the man was not paid before June, she's not going to go there. It pains me because this is something that just comes once in a year. My 14-year-old girl goes to school. The mother told me that she told her that she sneaks in when they are not seeing her because they said she must never come back to school while she has not, the money has not been settled. The car that I'm driving outside, you can laugh at it. It doesn't even have the script there to show that it's on the road. Because when I went to pay at some point, they told me that I was owing some other monies of some other, another 2 cars that I had. Therefore, they cannot give me the license disc. So I'm driving with all the papers to show that, I've paid. Sometimes they just write me because they say you are failing to show that it is law. I have been blacklisted by almost every bank. I have had suicidal attempts, 2 of them. I don't blame the guys that have killed themselves. I've seen that coming to me. I don't sleep. Even today, I just woke up at 3 a.m. while I slept at 12. I'm in Triptyline to try and gain the sleep. I can't sleep. My life is just in disarray. If I was found innocent in a court of law, how can then Scheme and Discovery still say I'm guilty? Well, what is it that I'm guilty on? I'm not trying to impress people here. I just want justice. Because I think I'm not being fairly treated like other people may have been if ever they were put in the situation. I continue seeing the patients in that particular surgery where I am. Sometimes I just pay with the little that I can because I'm the only doctor in that area. And that opens up until late. They've told me that they'll never pay me. But there are 2 reasons that I'm seeing them. Because I don't want to lose the patients, and also because I just feel sorry for them because they've got nowhere to go. So there's the relationship that we're having with these people. So
what's the area?
It's called Camille Refir in Siabuswa. But the area where we were imprisoned...
Siabuswa is out in Mpumalanga?
Yes, sir, around Mpumalanga. As you enter KwaNdebele, there is a passing KwaMhlanga, passing KwaGafontein. As you go to Siabuswa, you turn to the left, there is a place there called Camille Refir. That's the only surgery that is there. So it has been a serious situation for my family, for me. The woman that I have, I'm just lucky that I still have her.
And you were, sorry, so just tell me, you were blocked since when?
It's about 1 year, 8 months now. She would have left, I want to believe, because...
And the scheme was Scheme and which one?
And Discovery.
And Discovery.
Yes. She told me that I need to see a psychologist because of the situation, the way I'm behaving now. I asked her...
And the cause for why they blocked you?
They said the doctor that I had hired was not... first, the case was, it was a bogus doctor.
Yeah.
Then thereafter, I don't know, they changed. They said he had not registered with HPCSA, yes.
No, but you say that it was subsequently established. That was false. This
Yes.
is a doctor with the proper
Yes.
qualification.
Then I think that's when they realized that he was a doctor, seemingly.
Yeah.
Then they said, no, he is not registered. But I had already been excluded on the case. But he also, at some point, the court threw the case out.
Yes, but I mean, the scheme has established now for sure that he is a doctor. He's a properly qualified doctor.
I sent them the letters, and I asked him to send the letters to show that he is a doctor. He sent those things. While it was still investigated, because we're trying to assist the scheme, but you're having a mistake.
Yes,
You're saying this guy is not a doctor. Then I said to him, send them to show you that you're a doctor. He did send them.
And
then the
why
case
are
is
you
that it hit back on us because they changed the case now.
And why are you not being reinstated now that the original reason for blocking you has been removed?
I don't know. I wish I could answer that question.
But what reasons are given to you?
This lady, when I spoke to her at the phone to say, what is happening? Because everything is fine, she said, no, do I know that if ever I can be taken to HPCSA, I will be charged because that doctor was not paying some cost of HPCSA. Those are the costs that the doctor pays per year. I said I was not aware that he was not paying, and why don't you report me to HPCSA so that maybe HPCSA will give me a fair hearing?
I understand.
But she never.
Sorry, the doctor was not paying what? Was it
The registration fees that we pay every year.
to the HPCSA?
Yes. So seemingly he was not paying.
And on the basis of that, the scheme,
Close me out. He's not paying me up until today.
and the amount that they say you were required to pay back,
It was fluctuating.
did that, they say, come from the Ngcukaitobi practice?
That was another mistake because I said to them, if ever it is the Ngcukaitobi practice, then there must be a mistake because that practice was a very small period. I think maybe you are making a mistake of including the other surgery that I was going to move from. Sit down, let's come and sit down so that I can explain to you the mistake that you are making. But they didn't want to come to me. Actually, it increased from 400 to 600 or 700 and something that I was owing them.
And why have you not reported this to CMS?
I didn't know of CMS. I went through Sama, and I thought Sama would have assisted me in all the channels. But up until now, with Sama, we're hitting a wall.
All right. So the most immediate thing for now is for you to clarify your position to both schemes, Med scheme and Discovery, in order for them to know that the original reason why they took you out is wrong. This doctor is in fact qualified.
There's no way for me to explain to them because they already have the documents that the doctor is qualified.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have explained it before, but they don't want to meet me. They're frustrated with the lawyer. They are still not coming out clear with Sama. They don't want even to put me down to say, or maybe they can charge me. And if I'm charged, maybe that's what I'm also asking myself, am I going to be charged twice? If ever the court of law of the country has found me, I won't even say not guilty because they didn't even see any case against me. So I thought there's no sovereign, it's not a sovereign organization can find a law of its own that is above that one of South Africa. But if ever they wanted to give me a hearing, give me a hearing. Let's sit down, let me defend myself. They didn't want to do that. But instead, my family is falling.
When last did you communicate with Med Scheme and Discovery?
I think I communicated with them about 7 months ago. Then after the lawyer had tried, then I was now using Sama, of which we spoke even about 2 months ago. I'm still just waiting for them, but nothing. I've realized that there's nothing that is happening until this new group of ours came up, and at least I can sit down, I can have people listening to my side of the story. And it's the first time I can say that. It has never happened. I was giving up.
All right, thank you. Do you have anything else to say? We've taken your details and your specific complaints.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck. Sorry, my colleague still wants to ask you a question, if you don't mind.
I just want to make sure that we have from you everything, the documentation that supports your submission today. I just want to make sure that that's included in our files.
I didn't want to mention the situation of my family. I'm trying to protect my family.
The information in relation to the practice, the locum doctor, the court case, the schemes.
I want to believe it is there from the one that
Can we just verify?
I submitted, yes.
Yeah, we will verify it.
Thanks.
Yeah, just make sure that it's, I mean, I can't remember that story from what your organization submitted. But I think if that can be done rather urgently, whilst the information is fresh. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we have one more submission. I don't know if I'm too optimistic. Two more. Oh, okay, that's fine. Let's get those. So did you take the oath? No.
No.
All right, maybe let's start with that. So you must just say after me, I, and you announce your name.
I, Sibusiso Sitole,
Swear that the evidence
swear that the evidence
that I shall give
that I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth.
the whole truth,
Raise your right hand and say, so help me God.
so help me God.
Yes, you continue.
My name is Sibusiso Sitole, chairperson for Gauteng for a organization called Federation for Radical Economic Transformation. I'm speaking on behalf of the members who are members of the medical schemes that are in question.
Now, just tell me, do you have a document that you submitted to us?
A solutionist has been dealing with all the documents. Yeah. We've been.
And what is your organization?
It's a Federation for Radical Economic Transformation. FRET.
And just to be clear, are you part of solutionist thinkers?
Oh yes, I am.
Are you speaking as a member of solutionist thinkers or as a?
I'm speaking as an organization that is affiliated. We obviously are helping each other in dealing with these situations because we believe that as members of the medical schemes, we have a right to say something because it's our money that is in question here. All right, and the doctors are our community.
Yeah, that's fine. I think my colleague was simply trying to establish your status and not to question your right to speak. Your right to speak is guaranteed here.
Especially if you're speaking on behalf of patients.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to clarify. So you're saying that your organization represents members of medical schemes?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Look, what we might want some details about the Federation for Radical Economic Transformation in terms of its constitution and membership. So once you finish your submission, if you don't mind approaching the Secretariat to give us the document.
That's fine.
All right. Sorry, Mr. Stoller. Carry on.
Okay. The biggest issue that we have is the communication between the schemes and the members, where a member finds himself seeing a doctor for 15 years without any issues. Once you have a medical aid, you continue seeing your doctor. For some reason, you go see your doctor and a doctor says, I cannot take the medical aid. You will have to pay cash because I no longer have a relationship. What does CMS do about that situation where the medical schemes don't feel that they are obligated to informing the members who are paying to say, now we have an issue with the particular person? Because obviously, if they're talking about the records, they know this is the doctor you're seeing every time you're ill. The minute they have an issue, they should have it in their records that, look, these are the patients that are seeing these doctors. These are our members. We need to engage them so they don't go there. Some people do not have money. It's towards month end, you go to a doctor, you are sick. The doctor cannot see you. Where do you go? So there is a lack of accountability to members, even simple respect. You know, another thing is that I'm going to touch on, which the colleagues have already touched on. There is no member that we've questioned. I mean, we've asked more than 5,000 people from SAMU, from FRET, which I'm one of the members of the medical schemes. Not even one patient or one member knows that when they're signing that contract, being a member of a scheme, that they're giving away their rights to privacy. which is Section 59. None of us know that. Because if we do know that, all of us will actually go back and say, bring back those contracts. In fact, that's what actually we want, to fix that part. Another thing is, that's very concerning to me. I was hearing a word, peers, when compared to peers, to your peers, which is the billing. I went to see a white doctor. I paid 550 rands. I go to see a black doctor. I paid 350 rands, including medication. So now, when you are comparing, when a medical scheme says your code is not the same to your peers in terms of the prices that you're charging, is that peers meaning everyone racially? Because if peers is different in terms of prices, that means it's racial profiling. Because I can tell you now, white doctors are charging us a lot of money, but they don't dispense. You still have to go and pay for medication. So if you take your child or yourself to a white doctor, you are definitely going to pay almost 1,000 rands between consultation and medication. But you see, this now comes back to what is really going on. How are we protected as members? Everybody is fighting about everything, and everybody is fighting about money that they are not paying to the doctors. But whose money is it? When are we getting involved? When are we getting engaged to say, look, this is what's happening with your money? We've had a lot of problems where some of our members are owing doctors, because this thing of paying members money that's supposed, this direct payment, you are literally saying to the doctors they must close business, because who will pay the doctor if he gets 500 rands and he doesn't have 500 rands in his account? Already, I'm doing something else. I've done it myself. You know, so those things are going back to saying, what is this organization doing in protecting the communities?
Which organization is this?
CMS.
CMS, I see.
Last point.
So what's the point there? Is that the CMS is letting the schemes to get away with the
yes,
illegal
with
practices?
murder, get away with everything. One last point. We have to be very careful in allowing one institution or one organization to have so much power to close down people's businesses. The display of power and arrogance these medical schemes have, they've even forgotten that the money in which they are administering is ours. If you know very well that the doctor that you're supposed to be paying is dependent on you, why would you want to use that against them? Because if you're going to make somebody sign something that you know very well they're going to have to sign, if you're saying, I'm paying you 100,000 rands a month because of the members, but all I want is 5,000 rands a month, otherwise I'm going to stop the whole thing. Why do they have so much power? Thank you.
You leave. I imagine that one of the counter-arguments would be that the necessity to monitor fraud and waste is in the interests of the members of the schemes, because that is money that is held in trust by the schemes, the members' contributions. And so it's necessary to ensure that it's not being squandered, it's not being used inappropriately. And that where there is fraud in some cases, it's the whole of all of the members of that scheme that are adversely affected. What do you say to that?
I am not disputing the fact that the medical schemes have an obligation to protect the members, but why are we not informed about things that are going on? We don't know anything, and the worst thing is that the doctors are told of certain clause and that we've signed in certain contracts that we don't even know about. If that's what they are really doing, and there's no hidden agendas, why are we not clarified on things that we are doing? Why are we not clarified on the rights that we are giving? Because what is happening here is that you have a representative of a medical scheme that comes to you. He's just a salesperson to make sure you sign. You sign, he goes. Then you've got other people that you're dealing with that are faceless, that you never see. That is where the problem is that when are we informed? Who cares for us? You can't have an issue with a doctor that a person has been seeing for 10, 15 years, but fail to engage that person. I would understand on the patients that sometimes if I'm out of town, I'm not feeling well, I will just see anyone. But where you have patients that you know for a fact that they've been seeing this person for 5 years, you have that record. How don't you feel it is your obligation to inform those people, to say, we're having an issue, don't go to this guy anymore while we're resolving the issue, redirect. Now you understand what's going on, but you always find yourself in a situation where your doctor and the medical scheme, they've got problems and disputes, but you are a sacrificial lamb, but you are the one that's paying both of them. So now what we want to know is, what we want to ask for is that all medical schemes that we are paying must be accountable to us. And they must do things the right way with us, because we are the ones that are paying them.
Thank you. Will you just make sure we get the details of your organization?
I'll give you the details.
Membership. Thank you. All right, so that takes us to the last speaker on behalf of Solutionist Thinkers. Yes.
Good afternoon.
Whose PowerPoint is this? There's been a PowerPoint since we began this afternoon.
No.
So no one is using it. Or is it being used now? All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I have already taken an oath, so...
Yes, no, just carry on, yeah.
You know, when I listen to what my colleagues have presented, I'm actually a bit worried when you hear the depression that they go through, suicidal attempts that they go through, that I would ask, even though it's not part of the investigation, that there should be an agent support system to ensure that we don't lose more lives before the investigation goes to an act. Our colleagues need a lot of psychosocial support. We have seen casualties and we don't want to lose more. I will present the business side of the medical aids as prepared with our solutionist group. We just want to draw a little bit to the history of the healthcare system in our country. that previously a central element of the apartheid legacy for the country is extreme inequality and human development disparities. The health system was seen as one mechanism through which to maintain difference in the quality of life enjoyed by different population groups, and so ensure support for the ruling party. By 2002, the value of the tax subsidy per medical scheme beneficiary was estimated to be greater than the amount spent from government funds per public sector beneficiary. We have realized that there's an oligopoly in the industry, which I think the Competitions Commission will clarify. We have the three big role players: Discovery, GEMS, and MedScheme. We've realized that it has been very difficult for new market entrants into this oligopoly. The oligopoly is predominantly white-owned, which talks to the issue of racial profiling. We do not see black medical aid schemes successfully growing and competing in this market. We have a medical aid like MedScheme that administers about 9 medical aid schemes. If a practitioner has done a mistake or found or perceived fraud in one medical aid, you realize that he suffers from all the other medical aids under one MedScheme. This monopoly gives these administrators absolute power, and hence they are this arrogant. We know some of the features of a monopoly. Monopoly is highly anti-competitive. It destroys all the market entrants in the business. Well, it does not last forever, but for as long as it lasts, it maximizes profits. We have realized that the medical aids amasses a huge amount of subsidy from the government. In fact, they are the only private business that is subsidized by government. South Africa spends 8.6% of its GDP on health, majority on private healthcare sector, which is accessible to 14% of the population. I just want to address one issue that was raised here to say, can we not charge our patients privately? Because most of them already are subsidized by government into the medical aid scheme. And we know they also get tax incentives when they claim if they are on a medical aid. It then becomes very much difficult for them, having been subsidized by the government. Remember, government subsidy could have gone to their coffers. Government subsidizes them, they get tax incentives, and they still have to pay us. That is one of the reasons why they have difficulties in paying us. Also, the demographics of the market that we serve, fairly they cannot afford as compared to our white counterparts. We assess the market entry into the medical aid business. You must have about 6,000 members if you want to open your own medical aid or compete with these guys. You must have 6,000 members, which is very difficult before you start. You need 5 million capital, which is also a huge barrier. These are compliance. Also, there's a regular compliant audits by CMS, which have somehow disadvantaged the previously the black-owned medical aids that have tried in that market. Because of the oligopoly, once one medical aid investigates you, for example, if Discovery investigates you, definitely MedScheme will follow. So when one medical aid investigates, shuts you down, the other ones also follow. You find that you don't have any option but to close down. The medical aids collude with the big employers. You'll find that these big corporates, all the members are assigned to one medical aid. If you have issues with that medical aid, it means you cannot see so many patients. This is their market growth strategy, but it works adversely against us as practitioners. We came to a conclusion that there's a forward integration strategy by medical aids. By this we mean the medical aids want to own the whole supply chain in the business. The cases that you've heard from our colleagues, and which we think we've been misunderstood all along to be protecting fraudsters. But we have very good ethical cases where practitioners didn't do anything wrong, but they are forced to close down. Now, when we assess the supply chain in our industry, the supply chain is as follows. Money is collected from patients by medical aid. The money is managed by medical aid and the administrators through brokers. The money, when they structure their benefits, a chunk of the benefits is structured for hospitalization. It means on your benefit option, a chunk of the money covers hospitalization. For example, if someone goes to deliver a baby at a private hospital, they end up paying 200,000 or so, which is not questioned because it's at a private hospital. The benefits are structured such that we private healthcare professionals, there is nothing really. When patients come to us, benefits are exhausted early in the year. If benefits are exhausted around April, we carry the patients throughout the year. It's our patients, we find it difficult to retain them. We are forced to help them for free. That we believe is fraud committed by the medical aids because they collect money from patients, but they've got nothing to pay us as healthcare professionals. But when it comes to hospitalization, private hospitals, we've got big 3 private hospitals in our country where a lot of money is paid and it's never questioned. Patients never question, why do I pay 20,000 per night in a private hospital? Medical aids never question that. But when it comes to us with minimal benefits, we are still audited, and we see the reason is just to close us down. We also have what the medical aids call the low-cost model, where they give patients very, very low benefits. For example, I'm a dentist. I am trained to do implants. If a patient doesn't have a tooth, I can do an implant. I'm trained to do a root canal instead of removing a tooth. I'm trained to do crowns and bridges to replace lost teeth. With the low-cost model structured by medical aid and approved by CMS, 98% of patients that I see, the medical aid doesn't cover those procedures, which means as a private healthcare practitioner, I cannot see patients, even if I want to be ethical. There's no benefits for me. However, with the low-cost model strategy, it's a growth model for medical aids. They realize economies of scale in that they attract a lot of patients with this low-cost model. They collect a lot of benefits, but the benefits do not cover what we charge as private healthcare professionals. So we've realized that the low-cost model, the medical aids are making a lot of money with the administrators, but we cannot help the patients, which raises a question, are medical aids really non-profit organizations? We believe the medical aids and the administrators have a way of colluding and making huge amounts of money. If they can collect so much benefits, but always when patient comes to us, you give them an option, I can do an implant, my medical aid doesn't cover for an implant. I can do this procedure, my medical aid doesn't cover. What really do these medical aids cover? We have realized that the strategy of the medical aids is basically to shut down the black entrepreneurial activities. Even when you practice ethically, you are subjected to audits for 5 years, 6 years. What is the intention? We have been to other medical aids, and I will give an example like ProfMed. We've consulted the solutionists to say, we don't have issues with you. They said, look, we track everything within 30 days. If we see an anomaly with a claim, we immediately contact you, the doctor, and the patient. And we say, we suspect something could be wrong. We are not perfect, we make mistakes. If they realize something is wrong, they immediately contact you and the patient, you clarify your position before they make payment. If there's anything wrong, they don't make that payment. They allow you to correct the mistake. We are happy with that kind of intervention, where it's preventive. To add to that, it's like a traffic cop who hides with a camera. When you overspeed, then they show up and they arrest you, versus the one who makes it clear that, you know, I'm on the road. So the medical aids are doing this. Of course, they make a lot of money out of the AODs, if you are found to have made a mistake with one patient for 700 rands, they'll tell you it means the 20 years you've been practicing, you've done that. You owe us 10 million. Then they tell you, if you don't sign, we stop paying you. That comes to coercion. A lot of our guys were subjected to signing, not because they are guilty, but because they wanted to sustain their practices. It's an audit after an audit. The issue of indirect payments, we've got practitioners who've been on indirect payments for over 7-10 years. They pay you service the patients, money is paid to the patients don't pay us. Like the previous speaker said, if I don't have 1,000 in my account and they pay me 1,000 and they say, as a patient, they say it's for the doctor, will you pay the doctor? A lot of our practitioners have gone into back-to-back agreements with patients to say, at least give me 50% instead of taking the whole money. So the issue of spy cameras as well, we've got cases where HPCSA has made a recommendation, but the medical aid refuses to implement the recommendations. So we've realized that it's a strategy by medical aids to shut our businesses down. Why do they want to shut us down? They control the whole supply chain, except us, the independent private practitioners. Now, slowly, they're closing us down. If they don't find fault in you, they will investigate until they find something wrong. If they don't close you down, you are subjected to be in a part of a network. The network or the DSPs work like this. With their low-cost model, they promise patients that we'll negotiate rates with the doctors, provided you go to this particular doctor. Now, if I'm in the same area with my colleague and I'm not on the network, he is on the network, all the patients will go to him. So in a way, I'm forced to join the network to be competitive. But once I join the network, I agree to the low tariffs that they will pay me. The tariffs that they pay on the networks are far below what you are worth. We are not even engaged to say, is this reasonable? Every year, the benefits are deducted against the inflation rate that goes high. Now, all these factors, they make it very difficult for us as black practitioners to compete. We have black-owned medical aids that we were very happy with. I will give an example, Comet. We have a discussion as members of Solutionists. We tried to track down medical aids like Comet, which failed, which we felt they provided very good benefits. Some of our members who were on Comet, we understand they were moved to Bonitas, which for us also shows a racial profiling where we see patients moving from a black medical aid that is forced to close down, being moved to a white medical aid scheme. But medical aids like Comet, for us, they were very good medical aids. They were closed, and we wish there could be an investigation why these black medical aids were closed. The most common strategy that they will ask, I think my colleagues covered that, they will request clinical notes, which we think it is unlawful, as we are protected by HPCSA, and HPCSA says we shouldn't give clinical notes unless there's express consent. Now, we want to note that all the investigations that were conducted were based on clinical notes. If you can check the evidence we provided, most of them, Discovery would say, bring clinical notes. So we question the validity of the investigations because they were based on wrong grounds. However, we are not promoting a fraud. We are totally against fraud, but we believe that the system is very difficult for us to prosper. My colleague spoke about the Sechaba and then were paid judgments which were recommended to CMS but were not implemented. We question why were they not implemented. The issue of spy cameras is evident to us that these people are just looking for a way to shut us down. We question the legality of spy cameras. We've made it open as solutionists to all other races, whites, to say if you have issues, please come and join us. If you believe that our case is wrong, you are welcome to present your cases. If you have been illegally audited, we have extended that invitation, but so far none has really presented the case, except what we see on social media, like my colleague alluded to that on social media we see some white colleagues saying, no, they just asked for my diary. The issue of AOD as well, the formula they use to calculate what you have to pay if they found you at fault, the medical aids have an absolute power to decide. Okay, pay us 500,000, 1 million. We don't understand how they calculate that. Based on what do they come to that amount that you have to pay? But we find our colleagues having to pay a huge amount of money, and we believe this is extortion. And we believe, much as they argue to be a non-profit organization, we believe they're making huge amounts of money from these big amounts that our colleagues have to pay. We've got a question with an issue with issues where, like the other doctor presented, where they even undermine the CMS. They undermine our individual healthcare professionals. They undermine us as an organization. We have been trying to meet MedScheme. We've written them letters to say we've got our members who tried individually to communicate with you, you failed them. Can we meet you as an organization? We have been failing to an extent that we have decided maybe we should march to MedScheme to put pressure on them. But these people have so much absolute power that they seem to be undermining all the institutions that are regulating them. Our colleagues have been committing suicide. They are depressed because of all these issues, which affect both who are ethical and those who could have not been ethical. With the fourth integration strategy, we have seen some medical aid, like Platinum Health, which are now opening private practices, meaning they've got their doctors seeing their patients, and other doctors are not willing to see those patients. And this we also find to be anti-competitive. The issue of stakeholder management, we feel like patients are powerful stakeholder, followed by doctors and then medical aids. But the medical aids are controlling the whole industry. They are undermining us as doctors. We don't have a say. We are just at the high end of things. Now, the medical aids have been given too much power over everyone. In fact, to substantiate that these people are closing us down, they have never had workshops where they try to induct healthcare professionals on best code of practices. They don't have any efforts to show that they want to engage with us and work together. The only time they will talk to you is when you are being audited. But that letter in good faith to say, doctor, this is how we want to work with you, or doctors, can we have a workshop to see how best? If they really wanted to cut down fraud, those are the strategies they could use, because we are the best people to stop fraud from our members. We are well positioned to control fraud if there's fraud, but because they have a strategy to close us down, they do not take any effort. The money they spend investigating could be the money spent to prevent fraud, like the other medical aids we've stated. There's an issue of ex gratia that is well explained on the Section 59. Ex gratia, if you ask any of the healthcare professionals, none of us know about ex gratia. All they will tell you is the patient doesn't have money, you cannot help the patient. In fact, very disturbing, when you authorize for benefits, they always tell us the funds are available, but payment is not guaranteed. Always when you call a medical aid and confirm, they will tell you, no, there are funds, but they are not guaranteed. So we work in that space as a business where you're not even sure whether you'll be paid or not. Ex gratia is not applied. Ex gratia, it's something that is very hidden by medical aid to say, even when the funds are exhausted, we can apply for ex gratia and they can help the patient, pay for the patient. But this is one of the things that the medical aids are really hiding from the members. We've got our colleagues who are confused, who were frustrated from the healthcare sector, from the private healthcare because of these challenges we are facing, and now they try to work at the public sector. There's an issue of remunerative work outside the public sector. A lot of our colleagues, their payments are blocked because the medical aids, especially MedScheme, would say, we cannot pay you until you submit your ROPS. We also believe this is a technique from medical aids to frustrate us. When you are frustrated from the public sector, private, you try also to do some sessions at the public sector. You are always caught in between because they will not pay you. Now, in our conclusion, we say, well, they register as NPO, but through their associations with administrators, they realize huge amounts of profits. They sometimes pay more dividends than the mining sector. We understand they have more reserves in their coffers than prescribed by the law. The fourth integration strategy is slowly reducing the number of private healthcare professionals. And through DSPs, everything is done at the expense of the healthcare providers. We also need full accountability of the money recouped through AODs. We recommend that this should never happen again, that the dignity of our healthcare professionals should be restored, that the benefits should be structured to favor the patients and not the medical aids. We recommend that racial profiling, if it's successfully proven, should be severely punished. And we recommend that the money extorted from our healthcare professionals through AODs should be refunded with interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have this PowerPoint presentation with our team, the Secretariat?
Yes, we can present it, yeah.
Thank you. All right. Well, my understanding is that that will be the last speaker for Solutionist Thinkers. All right. Well, it remains then of me to thank Ms. Kacheni and her team and the whole of Solutionist Thinkers for illuminating presentations. We obviously have no idea whether we will call you back again, but it sounds like we will have to call you back again because there will likely be responses from the schemes and no doubt from the CMS. And so in due course, we might call upon you to be of help to us. But it's been great to have you around, especially because your presentation has been succinct and enlightening, certainly for me, who is not a practitioner in the area. So thank you. So we will take a few minutes, I guess, before the Competition Commission, I'm told, has arrived. And so we shall take a couple of minutes to just set up to make sure that there are arrangements made for them. And we will continue. Perhaps let's take 10 minutes. So let's take 15 minutes, and we will continue after 15 minutes.